Everybody, we're just waiting for a couple other counselors to join us. I got a text from Shelly that she's looking for the link, but she should be on in a sec. Looks like we got Charles.
You're muted, Jonathan.
Wonderful. I said, hi, Paula. Hi, Tony.
I couldn't hear you.
Hi, Paula. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Tony.
I can't hear you.
Hi, Charlie.
Well, it looks like
Hi.
Okay, it looks like we have quorum. Like I said, I think Shelly should be joining us here very shortly. Ryan, let's do roll.
Sounds good. Mayor Godis.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Willman.
Here.
Councillor Hershey.
yes.
Councillor Wusso.
She is coming. She needs to be pulled over. I'm trying to do that right now.
All right.
She's right there, Brian.
Yeah.
Ryan,
She
she's
did a
waving.
nice wave.
I'm waving. I'm here.
All right.
She's eating, actually.
Councillor Stepp.
Eating some praline pecans.
Mm,
I'm here.
great.
All right. We have a quorum.
Okay, I'll lead us briefly in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, only 2 minutes behind. It's fantastic. All right, so the purpose of tonight is to get our boards and commissions together. And we wanted to kind of go through and talk to each commission. We've asked them to fill out a survey. Deborah, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, we have all the boards and commissions in order for you to talk to them on the agenda. And then also they turned in a written statement to you guys on, we asked them 3 questions. What would they like to be their focus for the next year? Please include a budgetary request if you have one. Number 2, how often do you have to meet to accomplish your goals? And do you think your focus should change at all? So I think where we could, we have those submitted for you guys ahead of time. And the idea is there are 15 minutes for each board. We generally said, you have to pick one person to represent your board. We expect you'll have about 10 minutes to talk and about 5 minutes worth of questions, but we understand that'll go back and forth however works best. And with that, I think you guys are starting with the Vale board.
Okay, who am I bringing over?
I'm taking a quick look.
I got it. It's
See if I-
Avis.
I think that's in the agenda packet. Let's
It's
see.
Avis Loretta.
Avis, yeah, or Mark.
And Jonathan, can I ask a quick question? Are we just going to talk to them? Do you want any input from each council person who's on that board rep, like me on Vale, or we'll just go through the questions?
Yeah, I think let's go through the questions, and then, yeah, I would definitely be interested in, I mean, at the end of the day, the boards and commissions serve to inform, advise, and to serve our decision-making process. So I think, Tony or anybody else, if they had insight into, boy, it seems like we could do this a little different, or like the other boards I'm on do it a little bit different, I think that'd be really valuable information. So I see Avis over here. Do we have anybody else that needs to get brought over?
You're just supposed to speak with one person from each board. I think that's the only way we can try to contain it to 15 minutes.
It's such a good idea. Avis, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Avis Larita. I don't see my videos up, but my audio's on. Can you hear me, Tony?
Yes, we can hear you, Avis.
Okay. My name is Avis Larita, and I'm the chairperson for the Vale Board. And I'm not sure how you want me to start, but since I'm the first person, but I just wanted to let you know that the budget of the Vale Board relies solely from fines collected by the Glenwood Springs Municipal Court. So persons who are convicted of an ordinance or traffic violations are assessed a surcharge in addition to their fines. So as of December 31st, 2021, the budget was $30,714.14. So that's the budget that we work within. We work within those parameters. The amount is, well, due to the pandemic 2021 year, the amount in our budget is significantly lower than it has been in the past. But in the upcoming 2022 year, the Vail Board is going to take that into consideration. The funds that we amount, when reviewing the applications. And we're going to continue to maintain our focus. It's to reimburse victims of crime that happens in the city of Glenwood Springs. And we also grant grants to local nonprofit agencies, which are Riverview Regional Center and the Advocate Safe House Project. We meet once a month, either in person or on Zoom, depending on what the city council, how you guys want us to meet.
And Davis,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, sorry, as far as meeting times, I think one of the things we're trying to accomplish, and if other boards are out there that can hear this, is we have a number of boards. Some of us have 5 boards, which if everyone is meeting every month, that could be 7.5 to, however many hours, but also it taxes the community's resources because, if you have a board you have to be on every single month, it does take away from people's kind of pot of time and energy they're able to donate to, other nonprofits in the community, churches and the like. So, when you, and I preface all that, not specifically for you, Avis, or for the Vail Board, but do you think if you were to meet, I guess I'll just throw this out, is if you were to meet quarterly, how would that harm your mission? Or would that create so much work that you would just be, instead of meeting for an hour every month, you'd be meeting for 3 hours every 3 months?
Typically what we have done in the past is we meet once a month at 7:30 in the morning on the second Monday of every month. We typically can go through our entire agenda within an hour. So it's not too taxing, I don't think, on the board members that we have.
And Jonathan, the other thing is, Vail's a little different than some other boards. You're awarding victims of crime. Like, let's pretend I parked my car by City Hall and I left the keys inside and it got stolen, but they don't find anybody or anything. Well, that would probably be a felony, but something like my bicycle was taken, that would go to municipal court. I need a bike to get to work. I need to get on the agenda relatively quickly. It's great because this is true in the state courts too. Victim assistance, law enforcement. This money is raised not from tax dollars, but if I get a speeding ticket or something and I go see John Collins and pay a fines and costs with Judge Maurer, that's where the funding is. But as far as my time commitment, I think they meet super early once a month. It's okay. But I understand the concern, Jonathan, about too many meetings. But this is a little different.
Absolutely, and this was not specifically a concern for this board. I think I am trying to. I'll ask this of every board. So just that's one of the baseline questions I have. Go ahead, Ingrid. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
One of the things I think we're going to be asking, or that I would like to ask throughout this evening, is it possible to do the same work without diluting the outcome or the goal by meeting every other month or quarterly? Or do you feel like it's most appropriate to stay on the monthly schedule? And then at that same time, do you have any trouble recruiting volunteers? Those are 2 questions that I'm curious about.
Okay. To answer your first question, I think is Tony's reiterated there that once a month is probably good for the Vail Board, just because we do have people that are victims of crimes. And let's say we were replacing eyeglasses or we're replacing something that they truly need. I think that we can stay on top of that if we meet once a month. The second thing is we did have a significant problem last year with board members, but we were able to recruit through the paper. We wrote a letter, and through recruiting, we actually now have a full 5 board member team with 2 alternatives, which is really good. So going forward for the 2022 year, we've got a full complement of board members.
Great. That's really good news. I'm glad to hear that. That was actually part of the reason I asked that question, is because I knew there was a deficiency. So thank you.
Charlie.
Thanks, Amos, for all your work. My question is real simple. On an average, how many applications do you deal with in a month?
Obviously that varies, but in the 2021 year, we had 16 total individual applications. So that's somebody that's an individual person that's been a victim of a crime that's asking for reimbursement. So we had 16 total. And our payout for last year for reimbursements for that was $6,141.96. Now we also have the two local nonprofits, which are somewhat law enforcement related. It's Riverbridge and the Advocate Safe House. And they typically in the past have asked for significantly more than what we're willing or what we're able to pay. I guess I should say we're able to pay. So in the 2021 year, we gave our grant awarded was $10,000 for Riverbridge, and for Advocate Safe House, it was $7,500.
And just so Paul and Shelley and everyone know, the Advocate Safe House is for victims of domestic violence. And of course, Riverbridge is such a great organization. They help children who are victims of crime, but specifically victims of sex assaults and crimes like that. But are also witnesses to crime and other things. And they have a whole process there, which is invaluable to prosecutors like Mr. Collins and myself.
Paula?
Avis, thank you for what you're doing. Quick question: how do victims know how to contact people? Just curious on what's kind of the process of telling somebody who's impacted by a crime, whether it's stolen eyeglasses or they got beat up in an alley. I don't know what the agenda is, but how do they find out about that?
Sure. One thing that they do is sometimes when the officers are on the scene, the officer can just tell them about it. But what happens is there's a sergeant, and when the sergeants go through the offense reports for the day, they look and see if they fall into the criteria of the bail board. And then Katie Mulkey is the secretary for the board. Then she notifies them with a letter as well.
Okay, thanks.
So just keep things moving. We need to move on to our next one. I think, is there any other comments from council or questions? And maybe we should just write it down and kind of circle back, because we're kind of hitting these bam, bam, bam. But, I guess at least my opinion is, because of the timeliness that needs to reimburse some of these victims, it wouldn't make sense to go quarterly. It seems like there's a very clear point A to point B funding stream that isn't requiring more of our general fund or more an expansion of mission. It seems like this is a very, thank you, Deborah, for making this the first one, because it is very clear cut. It gets us kind of our appetite whetted. So unless somebody else has another view of maybe we should meet less, maybe this should be folded or something like that, I guess let me know or let us know. Go ahead, Shelley.
No, I think it's good to let the board kind of decide. And thank you, Avis, for being here and for serving on the board, because I know when I was working as liaison to the board, there were times when there weren't any applications or there wasn't much business, so they just didn't meet. So they kind of, control that internally on their own. And it seemed to work well, so.
It does work well. Katie Mulkey will let us know. So last year we actually had 2 meetings canceled because there were no applications. So Katie's very good at keeping on top of the applications, letting us know what the applications are. And if we don't have any applications for that particular month, she goes ahead and sends out probably a week in advance a notice that there aren't any applications.
Avis, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We appreciate all that you guys do. I think we need to move on to our next one.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time this evening. Okay.
Davis, I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Who are we bringing over from Historic Preservation?
Haley Carmer.
And I did it already.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
And Mr. Mayor, I wanted Haley to know that this background that I have is in celebration of the Historic Preservation Commission. This is the bridge, view from the bridge in the 1960s. You can see parking along Wing Street, which is cool.
I love that you did that, Tony. I think that's so cool.
Hi, Haley. How you doing? It's nice to see you in this role as a
Right.
member of Historic Preservation.
A little different, that's for sure. How are you guys doing?
Great. So I think I'll start off, and I'm sorry, we've only got 15 minutes per group, but because we have so many boards and commissions, we have 13 boards and commissions, we're always kind of looking for ways to make things more efficient, more timely. I used to be the liaison, as you remember, for Historic Preservation a couple of years ago. Great group of people. But I guess my question is, what is your typical meeting like? Do you usually have a full agenda? And is it possible to contemplate going every other month or even quarterly? And we have your answers to the questions we sent, but as far as like timeliness goes, what are your thoughts on that?
So our agendas kind of vary. I mean, typically we don't have, it just depends on, first of all, if we have any applications, which we, I think we had maybe one or two major ones last year. But otherwise we have and have had for quite some time a work plan that we keep going from year to year to keep track of projects that are ongoing, like Cole Camp and the Hot Springs Historic District and other things like that that get carried over. So we try to work through those at our meetings, but I think we typically get through our meetings in an hour and a half at the most. The beginning meetings, or the meetings at the beginning of the year, are a little longer because we do go through that work plan. I know for our group, we do appreciate meeting monthly just because it allows us to be consistent and keep up kind of the pace of what we're working on and not get lost in translation or over time. I think if we did meet, I don't think quarterly would be ideal. Obviously, all of our board mentioned that they do like meeting monthly just because it keeps us on top of things. Otherwise, we would spend a lot of those meetings catching up, and I don't know that that's the most efficient use of time. So, how full our agendas are just depends on what's coming through as far as land use things. But when we don't have new land use applications, we do try to be proactive on grant funding opportunities. Like I said, Cole Camp. We just finished up the survey last year of the downtown, so that was beneficial as well. But I think that, like I said, mostly for consistency and continuity, we do appreciate the monthly meetings.
Okay.
Try to be efficient with those.
And Charlie, I see your hand, but she led me into a question. She talked about continuity and consistency. And that's the other thing I think, Ingrid and I have talked about, just understanding with each commission and trying to have some kind of standardization. Who, as far as who sets the agenda, how is that agenda came about? Is that staff led? Is it your board chair that's led? I mean, there's no right answer. I'm just kind of curious on how our boards set an agenda, follow up, who takes minutes, things like that.
Primarily staff. So Gretchen was the liaison for a long time, but after she left, we've kind of been in transition since then. But Emery is currently our staff liaison, and Jen Newton had been there as well. And I think she is still involved to some extent, but Emery's typically the one who's at the meeting. So they help kind of set the agenda initially, and then I'm the current chair. So I'm working with Emery to look over those and see if there's anything else that's going on, just because it is somewhat related to what's going on in planning as far as building applications that might come in, or certainly land use applications that are directed to us.
Sure. Go ahead, Charlie.
Thanks. Two questions, Haley. First, you said applications. I think maybe you clarified what you're reviewing in applications are matters coming before either P&Z or council on a land use issue. And the second question is, has the Historic Commission ever discussed creating an historic designation, a city historic designation? I know that Newcastle and other places have that. So those are two questions I have. And then I guess any other comments at the end you think we should, or questions you have of us?
Great. Yeah, so we don't really see general land use applications. We only see applications that are, called for in the land use code as far as historic designations. The Western Hotel, when they went through their process last year about redeveloping that for the apartments, we looked at that as far as compliance with design standards and keeping the historic nature of that with that new development going forward. So we saw that first and then went to P&Z and obviously finally to you guys. So those don't come through a whole lot, but we do enjoy them when they do. There was also some work the city was going to be doing with the cemetery. So that process starts by a couple of commissioners forming a committee to determine if there's going to be a major impact. And if there is, then we would hold a public hearing on that. So we've got some steps in place as far as that goes. So there's not, we don't see every land use application, but we try to certainly have a say when it is involving a structure that is already designated or that's downtown that would be affected by the design standards. And then, sorry, what was the other question, Charlie?
The other question was, I think Newcastle and some other towns have a town historic designation for buildings. Has been any thought about doing that in Glenwood and what that would look like?
So as far as a historic district goes, that it has to be sort of led by the landowners. We have to get all of their, or the majority of the landowners' approval. So that's something that we want to focus on this year, is getting the hot springs area designated. That would include the hot springs, I think Yampa, the Hotel Colorado, and some of that area, but we do have to get landowner buy-in for that. We can't just go in and do it. So that's always part of the challenge there. But that's why we want to have potentially somebody come in to work on that request. What we had talked about was a request for proposals for a consultant to assist with that. Once we get a little more groundwork done with the owners to make sure that they're on board. But Gretchen did do some of that before she left last year, as far as making connections with those landowners.
I was just going to say, some members of council are having trouble finding the individual files from each board and commission. And we just updated the software. So Ryan, can you tell people where it is on their end? And I'm sorry, Haley, and we can do this when you're done. I just wanted to make sure I got that out.
That's okay.
I'm going to let Haley, I have one question for you, Haley. And that is that in past, I've known that you have had some members that have been so committed and knowledgeable that when we as council implemented some changes to how we were doing boards and commissions, my dog loves to run by right when I'm walking somebody. That change impacted your commission more than any others because of that vested knowledge and historical, literally understanding of the community. Talk to us about how that changed and what in your ideal world, how would we maybe make some changes to encourage new members and also kind of honor those who have that historical knowledge?
So I think it was most evident when our former chair, Ron Karsten, left. He had been, I don't know how long he had been on, but he was there when I started, which was several years ago. I'm nearing the end of my term. I think it ends in April, and that'll be my last one with the term limits. So because we have these ongoing projects, not necessarily that take years to kind of get in place, especially with a historic district, surveys, the bridge was obviously a big one that he was very much involved with. I think that institutional knowledge is really important for a board like ours that doesn't see a whole lot of activity from land use and things like that, but does have other goals that I think help the city as far as historic tourism, which brings money and folks to the city, and ways that we can put ourselves on the map with respect to those things. So the people that have been here a long time, and we also, I think we've seen more interest in people being on the board more recently, but for a while there wasn't a lot of that. So at least for my recollection. So having those people that were committed helped keep the board full, and it helped keep that institutional knowledge. And now that we've also lost Gretchen, who was our staff person that had a lot of that as well, the transition's been interesting, but staff's been doing a really good job to keep us together and moving forward.
Okay, and then I have one other question, and that is, how are we doing, and are you guys, as far as communicating with your commission, And do you guys feel like you have enough opportunity to get in front of us on the stuff? Are we talking to you at the right places?
I mean, Tony's been great as our liaison for sure. He's there quite often, so that's helpful. And I think it's so amazing that you guys have committed yourselves to having somebody on each of the commissions. I think that's always a good place to start. When we do have big projects, our goals and projects going forward, we can bring those to you. But I think primarily it would be around budget time. Like if we do want to get, moving on our consultant for the historic district or some other project that would require funds, which we don't have a lot of. Our biggest one is our booklet, which you guys approved last year to be published in Spanish and English. So we're finalizing that. But I think that's primarily the time that we'd want to be in touch with you all. But between staff and our dedicated council liaison, I think we're pretty well set on that.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
Paula, go ahead.
Haley, I'm going to go back to Ingrid's question on some of the boards that I've been on, and they've kind of gone through that same transition of losing some longtime board members. And it's always been encouraged to have these people still participate. They just wouldn't be a voting board member, but they could still provide a lot of information and insight on some of the projects. And is there a way of encouragement from the city or the council or the boards themselves on offering this role to say somebody like Ron Karsten, who may still be very interested in participating and making sure that he still feels welcome and showing up and something along that line? Do you have any ideas on that?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, I know that staff's reached out to him on some of the projects when none of the sitting members knew the answer to questions. So I think keeping those lines of communication open is helpful. And maybe when they go off the board, having an open invitation to regularly come, or if there's some other seat we could add to the commission that's not an alternate position or a voting position, but some other, like for the Bar Association, we have a past president role where you're just there to be that institutional knowledge person for your last year or something like that. So it could maybe be a transition in that sense where you're not voting, but you still stay on and are somewhat expected to be there and participate, but it's not the same commitment as, say, a seated member.
Like a position emeritus or something, Haley?
Yeah, something like that. I think that would be nice.
That's a great idea. On a second note on that question, one of the things that I try to encourage when on the boards that I'm a liaison on is this is not a permanent thing. It is, we want people to basically take a sabbatical, come back refreshed and start again. Do you see that kind of interest of somebody saying, okay, well, I'll take a year off and I'll be back and apply in the next round or the round after that or something like that?
I would imagine they would be. I wonder if it's clear that that's possible, because I wasn't sure how the term limit thing works. So that might be a matter of just getting that out to folks that have, cycled off to say, we implemented the term limits, but if you are interested in reapplying, we would encourage that. So maybe that's a communication from the city that could go out to those folks that had been on, if there is a lack of interest in a board or just in general, to say, even though you hit your term, you can still reapply if you're interested in coming back.
Okay, that sounds like two messaging points we need to work on.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of, just I'll editorialize it a little bit. This term limit thing caught all of our boards because some of them hadn't cycled. I think historical preservation is a great example where like 3 or 4 of the members are like somewhere between 12 and 25 years on the board. So it hit, I think, you guys disproportionately. Yeah, I think one thing we've talked about is having like one member potentially designated as like essential, that could do a third term if possible, or an emeritus position or whatever we'd want to call it. I think that is probably important, if not just for this transition time until we can get this, but I think, please let Ron know if he's been off a year. Number one, it's a public meeting. He can still come no matter what, still participate. He just doesn't have a vote for 12 months. And then if there's a vacancy, he can just jump right back on. So please relay that to Ron. And I think that we as council and staff need to recognize that and make that point very clear to people.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And we'll probably, since there's, I think, well, we had 2 folks come on that, I can't remember if they're filling 1 seat, and we at least have an alternate, which is good. And then when I leave, we'll need to fill that. So maybe he'll be willing to come back.
So
once
currently you have no
I'm-
vacancies, correct?
Currently, no, we don't. I think somebody's waiting on an appointment, but yeah, but we do have interest for the seats.
I see, looking at the website, it shows 2 vacancies and 1 alternate, which means there's probably 1 vacancy, because the alternate essentially stepped up. That's what I see on the city website.
Yeah, I think Grant, he was an alternate who got appointed when one of our members resigned this year. And then we had 2 folks that came in with interest in being involved going forward. So they're the ones waiting for the appointment. So I think there is 1 vacancy and then 1 alternate vacancy. So that might be where they come in, but.
Okay, so thank you. Deborah, you have your hand up. Do you have a question for Haley?
No, I just wanted to say, Sarah, who is our board and commission wrangler, let me know that staff liaisons have been notifying individuals terming out that they can reapply after at least 1 year. So that message is going out to people terming out. I just want you to know.
And if we could add to that message, there's no prohibition and even an encouragement if they want to continue to stay involved in that board or commission, they can absolutely continue to participate as a member of the public. They just don't necessarily have a vote for 12 months. All right. Hey, Haley, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll probably see you at some point in.
Thank you, Haley.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks, everybody.
See you
Bye.
soon.
All right. Next is, what do we have next here, guys? Kasana. So Financial Advisory Board.
Hello.
Oh, geez, man. Alyssa's on it tonight. Hi, Kasana. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you all?
Good. I miss my old Financial Advisory Board.
Well, I mean, like you were just saying, there's no prohibition on attending.
So I think you have the advantage of hearing some of the questions that we've posed, and I'm trying to run through these pretty efficiently and not have it about, updates and a joint meeting and what are you doing. So you guys did great. I read over your, what you're trying to do, your meetings, yada, yada. I guess kind of hearing these questions, one, you said it may make more sense to have 2 meetings in July and August and skip November and December. So I mean, I think that's a fair thing. And at least in my recollection, Financial Advisory Board has been pretty easygoing about, we just don't have a lot going on this month. Maybe we just skip a month. Do you feel like that works well, or maybe every other month and maybe more formalized, a few less meetings might work?
I think the way we've been doing it works pretty well. I think everyone who is a member is pretty flexible. If we need extra meetings, most people are able to make that work. We have traditionally, I mean, I know the last couple of years, there hasn't really been anything to discuss a couple of the months at the end of the year. So we have not held meetings. Everyone in the meeting this week was willing to work with the workflow.
Okay. Another question is, how is the agenda usually set? Is that something that you take? Do you guys take your own minutes, or is that staff produced and then gone through you, or how does that work with your board? Excuse me.
It is usually the staff definitely are the ones taking the minutes. The agenda is usually Steve Boyd has things that staff wants to discuss. And then if there are things that myself as the chair or some other member wanted to discuss, we just let him know ahead of time to put that on the agenda. The things we're looking at are pretty much the same from meeting to meeting, except for those one-offs like the rate studies and those sorts of things.
Any other questions?
So just Charlie and I sit on that board. Charlie's got his hand up, so maybe he can address that.
Oh, go ahead, Paula.
I was just going to say, in reference to scheduled meetings, and this is actually probably pretty consistent through most of the boards, is, this idea of there are busier times. Well, maybe not. It's for after listening to the Vail board. But I've definitely seen it with the Financial Advisory Board that they have very busy times, and then they don't have so busy times. So I think that that leeway of them determining when and if they need to meet has been helpful. And we see that especially kind of in the fall and the winter. So that's my take on that. That flexibility is good, and that actually works for me as well. It's always kind of a nice little thing to go, oh, we're not meeting. Okay, great. I'm going to do this instead. But then when we are meeting, it's full of information.
And luckily, the slow times often coincide with holidays, so that doesn't happen with everything. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Totally, go ahead.
Hi, Kasana. I had a question for you, just as far as the duties and everything. I think you guys do a great job, and I personally really appreciate the budget memo that you guys forward to council every, late summer or fall when we start getting into budget season. So are you happy with that process? Do you guys feel like you have enough input on the budget? Any changes need to be made there, or is that all working really well?
I think that's all working well. We've kind of think it's been a work in process for the last few years, and I think it's the way it's been for the last year or so has worked pretty well.
Go ahead, Charlie.
So Kasana, we didn't talk about this earlier in the week when we had our meeting to talk about tonight, but and Steve Boyd might be able to correct me, but does the FAB meet with the council on a regular basis? And do you think it would be helpful, particularly in that with the budget memo? Maybe that's when we had that meeting with councils, when you present the budget memo, but is there a need to meet with council other than right around budget time and or the grants, which are not the only things that the FAB does, but two big things you do every year?
Historically, I don't think so. I think at least as long as I've been on the board, our council liaisons have always done a good job of kind of communicating to us what council is thinking, and if there is a need to bring any of our discussions to the council as a whole. But I think the way it's been working has been pretty effective, unless council feels a need to have more conversations. I think we have always been willing to talk with council about our thought process anytime it was needed. But it's been my experience that the liaisons have done a good job of bridging between the FAB and the wider council.
Ingrid.
I'm not super familiar with the requirements and the diversity of the volunteers that go on the Financial Advisory Board. I know like tourism a little bit better, where we pull somebody from the lodging industry. It's, along those lines. But do you feel like the parameters are diverse enough to get a wide audience with a lot of different voices on the Financial Advisory Board? Do you think we need to tighten it up, loosen it up, anything like that?
I think the parameters are fine. I think by nature of the board itself, it attracts a certain type of person, type of experience. It's not that sexy sounding.
No.
Yeah.
You get a lot of accountants and bankers, and I think that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, accountants, business people, that's a lot of what we draw.
If you ever feel, those are the kind of recommendations we would love to hear from you. If you feel like you're not getting enough diversity in the dialogue at the table, that's the kind of feedback we'd love to hear from you guys. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think for what the FAB does, it's been a good mix.
Yeah.
At least in the last few years. And I think you may have 3 new applicants. I've met 2 of them, and I think they both have some great experience to bring. So I'm happy to see that we're getting some candidates with some good experience for the work.
Perfect. And then do you also feel like with the term limit changes and stuff like that, is that prohibitive, or do you feel like it allows for some more inclusion and opportunity for different members?
I have kind of mixed feelings about it, just because over my tenure, we've had times when we've had a ton of interest in the FAB, and then the last year, I think we've been running at 2 regular members short, and we haven't had any alternates. Okay. So my only concern is if that decreases board membership.
Sure.
Because I hate to see that board be down a couple.
Yeah. Where by limiting terms, we're taking off members who are interested in staying on. Okay, that's great feedback. Thank you, Kasana.
Kasana, I think FAB though is one of the largest boards we have. I think it's 9 members, where most boards are no.
No, it's 7.
Is it 7? Okay. Oh, we usually have 2 or 3 alternates, and I think when I've been the liaison, we've had 9 or 10 people when it's been a full house, because we usually get pretty good turnout.
We have in the past, but like I said, this last year, it's only been 5 of us, and so that concerned me being term limited. That I didn't want them to be down to 4. I was happy to see there is some more interest. So,
gotcha. Charlie.
Just a couple quick comments. To answer your question, Ingrid, there's 7 members. 1 is from the finance industry, 1's from tourism, and 1 could be a non-citizen so long as they have a business or residence in the city. I think the toughest part about the term limit, I think, for the FAB is understanding the city budget, which is a big part of this. And it takes 2 or 3 years really to get a sense of what's going on there. And the last thing I want to say before we conclude is Kasana just mentioned her, she's term limited off. She's been on there as long as I think I've been on the financial advisory board, both as a citizen and then as a council liaison. She's done a bang up job, both with grants and most recently as being our chair. I just want to thank her for all of her time. So.
And Kasana, I guess, my last question is, do you think that's something that we mentioned in another one of having a designated survivor, a professor emeritus position? Do you think that kind of thing would help with continuity, but yet still allow for, people to cycle off and then cycle back on if they need to, but still allow some opportunity? I mean, would that thread a needle, or do you think that the term limits are counterproductive?
Again, I have mixed feelings, because I like that it does allow for some new people to come on. Although I don't think in my tenure we've ever said, no, you can't be on. We've just had a bunch of alternates at some point. I don't know that having an emeritus position would help to achieve the aims of having term limits to begin with, because I'm afraid it would just be one person who may or may not be the best choice to remain permanently. How do you decide that?
Right. No, that's why term limits sometimes are okay, because then we don't have to make hard decisions. Paula, last question.
Just a quick thing to the whole council. We do have somebody who kind of sits in and helps with decisions, though is not a member of FAB. Mike McCollum sits with us, and that kind of came up about a year ago with his expertise. So we do kind of have that outside input that emeritus might put in. And as always, anybody is welcome to kind of help in these meetings without being appointed to the board. Mike does not vote or anything. He just offers some of his insights.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Kasana. Really appreciate it. I see Dan Sullivan's hand. Dan, thank you so much for all your service on Financial Advisory Board. But in order to keep it concise, we just had one representative, so we're not going to open up for public comment. Send your anger emails to charlie.willman@cogs.us. Thank you. All right. All right. Next, I think Kasana, thank you for everything you do, and your board is great. Next one, Arts and Culture Board. Stephanie.
There I am.
Hello.
Hi, you guys. Oh my gosh, let me see how I look. That's the most important thing. So let me, Jonathan, and everybody address kind of what you've been talking about. I mean, we're this new energetic board. I've been on it forever, but 4 years equals forever. Shelley's our liaison. We do have our agenda set by the staff, and the minutes are taken by the staff. The meetings are monthly. They take an hour and a half. We don't have a lot of public attending, so we must be talking a lot amongst ourselves. We have, for a long time, just had 4 members, and now we've really gotten up to speed with about 7 members and a youth member we finally got. So we've got diversity, and especially diversity of art disciplines, 2 architects, 2 artists, and whatever. So having said all that, one thing I thought about efficiency wise, they're full of energy. They haven't been on boards before, so they even think monthly is too much like stopping and starting when we're trying to get something going. But so they probably wouldn't want to go quarterly, but but we need to do whatever you want us to do to tone things down. But when we overlap with Parks and Rec, that could be a meeting where we just meet with them. And when we overlap, or just for a yearly check-in with DDA, that would take 2 meetings off of ours that would be joint with sort of like-minded boards. Or, of course, we'd be fine with 10 meetings instead of 12. I don't know if that's one of your multiple choices. Sounds like you're either doing quarterly or every other month, but that's my initial spitting into the wind here.
Yeah, no, Stephanie, we're looking for you guys for feedback along with your liaison. So there is no black and white monthly or quarterly or yearly. So, if 10 meetings and then 2 joint meetings with the 2 other commissions makes sense, then, that's the recommendation and that's the feedback. That's where we're having these meetings. So thank you.
Okay, no, and I didn't mean to sound persecuted. I just want to let you know I got a bunch of lively members, and so they hadn't thought of quarterly. But I also want to, it is a lot of work for Brian, because I'm saying they last an hour and a half, and Karsten. Shelley, what do you think about some of what I'm saying?
I think it's great. I'm so excited about this board. Stephanie didn't mention, we have a lot of new people, a lot of younger people from the community that have gotten really interested in really ramping up and bringing vibrancy to arts in Glenwood Springs. So very excited about that. We have a full board right now. We have a youth member, and we have 4 applicants waiting in the wings to apply for 1 alternate seat. So I'm looking at hoping we can add an alternate so we can at least apply 2 of those people. And then as far as meeting times, I love the board to have flexibility. I think it's great, Stephanie, for, if you want either at the end of every meeting every month, talk to the board, and you as chairman can work with staff on what the agenda should be, what you guys, if you have ideas you want to bring forward on the agenda. Staff's been doing a great job on moving that forward and getting the building done, the art center kind of renovated and brought up to code and all of that. So it's ready to really start operating as I think the community would love to see it operate this year. So no, and I love the idea of you guys meeting with DDA and Parks and Rec, because you do have a lot of ideas in implementing the new arts plan that will have overlap with them and others, and maybe even Rivers. So whether or not you want those to be additional meetings, or like you said, it might be better just to have that be your meeting for the month. So,
Yeah, I mean, not additional.
yeah, no, so I think you guys are doing a great job, and go keep with your spiel.
Okay, no, but I wasn't even trying to like chop us up. I just wanted to let you know we got a lot of young puppies who are full of energy, and we got ambitious projects, but of course, because you generously funded our that public arts plan. So now we got some implementation. So I guess I don't know if I'm pledging it or just saying we can, I would like to have 2 of the meetings be sort of joint meetings with different boards, because it's economical, but also because it anchors us into something that's really going on in the city that we both are looking at the same time, Parks and Rec or DDA.
Charlie has a question.
Okay.
Charlie? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I gotta hit the button. Stephanie, a couple of things. I see you have a couple of funding requests, and so my 2 questions, and one is maybe for Deborah, and the other is from you, Stephanie. First for you, Stephanie, is what efforts, and once you go out and start fundraising, you're already doing a bunch of other things, but is there any thought of fundraising for these things? And Deborah, the question for you is, would either or both of these qualify for the FAB grants? I know we have other city FAB grants we make for like fireworks and things like that. So I didn't know, it's never come up before because I never had a board that I can recall want money.
I would, if it's something council wants to fund, I would stay away from FAB grants, just because we don't get a grant anymore from FAB for the fireworks. We just budget the funding because it was really difficult to get a grant from ourselves. So,
Okay.
I mean, I think it is something, certainly if council is interested in doing, we can find the funding to do. I think the TOPEC project will be fantastic.
I'll make that comment. I like that project, and Jen Newton had her hand up there a second ago, but anyway, that's all I have. Thanks.
And
Okay.
I would say I think we need to get back as one of those, maybe your 13th meeting should be a joint council meeting with you all. And if we haven't had one in a while, I don't think we have, because we've been busy and COVID and all that great fun stuff. But we need to get back to those. And I think that's a pretty good time to contemplate these grant asks and kind of what your vision is, and have more an interactive, collaborative discussion than what we're doing tonight.
Okay, well, that sounds wonderful. And somehow I got to escape answering Charlie, but
I'm sorry.
But no, I mean, I'm happy. I'm a Dodger. I'm dodgy. No, we would certainly want to. It's always hard to do, but look for money for some of these things instead of just standing with our hand out. So sponsorships could work for some kind of public physical things where the sponsor has their name on something. And certainly I have, there's a lot of funky grants out there, as we all know, that might be historic, related to the art, or just art by itself. I mean, a lot of people have, we haven't exhausted that at all. So we'd be willing to do that.
Speaking about hands out, I see Deborah would like to comment, and then Shelley.
I just wanted to clarify that we do have budgeted funding for the TOPEC project in our economic development budget.
Okay, good. Great.
Oh, nice. Okay. And Deborah, I was just going to ask about that. I know we've added a not a parks and arts budget, kind of under Parks and Rec. So I don't know if, this is it's minimal amount. I think it's 7,500 total that the board is kind of looking for projects. So I don't know if there's a way to annually kind of fit some of these little projects into that budget. It's a fairly substantial budget, or what's the best way to do that? But
I would think project by project, we would figure out and where it fits best. So yes, we can, $7,500 is usually easy to find funding for.
Great.
All right.
Oh, look. Yeah, let me put you ahead of schedule.
No, hold on. I'm going to ask a question. By the time I'm done, I'll have 4 more hands up. We'll get behind this second.
Okay, let me lean back and relax here.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, I guess my other question is, do you guys, when you make recommendations, I want to make sure all our boards are feeling useful and heard, and we have this kind of tension, not tension, kind of a dynamic of, we want our boards to serve as an information conduit and to serve us in our decision making. I think that's like the formal way. It's not a really warm, fuzzy mission, but I also want to make sure that I think we all want to make sure that you guys are feeling valued and heard. Do you feel that you're able to, if you have a concern or a need, that you're able to get in front of us and say, guys, this is a recommendation, anything from a recommendation to an ask? Do you feel like that is an open door? Is Shelley doing a good job as your liaison? Is it kind of
no, can we just, no. Thanks for bringing that up. No, she's fantastic. It sounds weird, but this art lane, when it's time to get in it, or when something goes up in the city, you'll be like running to us for help, or we'll be running to you for help. So it's sort of, I don't want it to, but if in the art world, if something gets hot when something happens, and not everybody, that not everybody got to opine about it. So we're just kind of been laying low, and I want people to know we exist, but I mean, we haven't done anything stupid or ugly to be picked on about. But when we're ready, I'll hide behind Shelley for sure.
Okay.
But thanks for saying that. I think we feel like we could get on your agenda if we wanted to address something. Hey, this is coming up, and somebody wants us to partner, or hey, this is coming up, and if we missed it, it would be a huge cost us a lot of goodwill. Or I think we do feel like we have an on-ramp onto your, besides if you call a meeting and want to have us look at the same thing at the same time, that we're able to come up for air if we need to.
Great. And do you feel like you get enough direction from council as well about what your mission and what we would like to see?
I'm going to say no, because I am sort of a we're ready for, I'm someone who wants to kind of serve you as the, not me personally, but I want our committee to serve you when you need that help. So I guess if you have nothing to say, that's fine. But go ahead and we're not so isolated that we're just like, we don't need any help. I want us to be that auxiliary for you, that dotted line on a flow chart for you. So I'm saying no, meaning go ahead and ask us if you want something, or to put something on our wish list.
You're so low maintenance. Gosh.
I know. I'm trying, yeah.
All right. Well, Stephanie, thank you very much. I appreciate keeping us up on time. Is there any other questions or comments from council for Arts Commission? Okay. Thank you again very much, Stephanie.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks so much.
Please relay our appreciation to the rest of the board members as well.
For sure.
Thanks. Okay. Next is River Commission. Ashley Moffett. Hello, Ashley.
Hello, I'm figuring out. Oh, there we go. Camera and volume. Well, first, I just want to thank council for giving us the opportunity to get in front of all of you. I know that, Shelley historically and Paula now have done a great job as being our liaison, but it's always good to get in front of the whole crowd. Also, big thanks to staff. Trent does an amazing job in sort of carrying our plan forward and does a lot of the heavy lifting that makes us look so good. So I want to make sure he gets recognized, as well as the whole planning department and Parks and Rec. We try to team up with them where we can, and hopefully we can do some more in the future. But really, you guys saw a couple of years ago, we started this matrix because we're a bunch of nerds and love a good spreadsheet. So we took all of our powers and duties and then broke them down into key issues to really help us focus what we do throughout the year. We always have a couple constants, long-standing Riverfest, which we've really tried to amp up in the last couple of years. We had a bit of a setback with, the pandemic, but last year was a great success. Plantings, I think we started that probably 3 or 4 years ago. We do a riparian planting in the fall. Last year, we were working on the sort of wall at Two Rivers Park. And hopefully this year, we're going to team with the Parks and Rec Commission and Middle Colorado to do an even more substantial job. What we got into, and the soils were a little challenging. We'll also be doing a planting this year as part of the work that we've done on 3 Mile. And then another series that we've added kind of to our annual list is public outreach. We've had a number of successful videos hosted on the city's Facebook page and have had great help from you all in participating and monitoring those events, which I think have been a great way. That's kind of us hearing from you and hearing from the community. When we got into a couple things in particular with the riparian code work that we were trying to get passed, we were hearing that we needed to have more outreach and education. So we've really taken that to heart and made that part of our annual program. And then, you can see on the list, there's a lot of stuff we monitor. Couple of the big things that we've helped push, mention the riparian code, the boat ramp, and Two Rivers restoration of the shoreline, and 3 Mile. 3 Mile, we just got, I think Trent sent an email out this week that we got another 180,000. So we were up to 300,000+. Really started with our group sort of noticing an issue and sort of working with staff and council to, get the necessary design and funding in place to really improve that. So I know that you guys are all busy folks, so I sort of ran through our gamut, but if there's something in particular you guys want to talk about or give us feedback on, I'd love to pass along to our awesome crew.
Yeah, and I think, this is more kind of trying to find out the effectiveness of each board and efficiency, and if there's suggestions on, can you meet less often? Is it advisable? Is it, quarterly for 3 hours? Is it, monthly, does that work? Or do you want to, look at things like, oh, sorry, Paul, I'm going to mute you. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Sorry. I'm still getting.
That's probably me.
Oh, it probably is. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, as far as when you meet and everything, how is that working for you guys?
I certainly don't think we'd want to meet less. Monthly seems to be right on. I can't remember if the matrix that Trent gave you we put sort of key commissioners assigned to each of the things. And really that person's job is to kind of carry it between meetings if we can. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's feasible to do more, and I certainly wouldn't want to do less.
Do you have any vacancies currently on your River Commission?
I don't think so. I mean, I know we're about to turn over, and I don't know if we've gotten, so I'm term limited, as is Ryan Davis. So 2 are leaving, and I don't know. Paula, do you? Oh, there you go.
We have 3 applications. So we would be ready to fill those. And then the other thing that all of the great things that Ashley talked about, this is one place that I have seen outside participation, and I'm sure Shelley remembers this as well, where right now we have Chad Rudow from the Roaring Fork Conservancy is there at every meeting, and he's kind of keeping the board caught up on post-fire in the canyon, because he's part of the Glenwood Canyon Restoration Alliance group, and he brings reports from that. In the past, Kyle Holt, who is one of the applicants now to fill the position because of some property he bought, was there for a number of years. So I really like the engagement of the outside, outside of the regular realm of just the board members, people who are interested and sit there and participate.
And Ashley, you said you were coming off, and we've kind of been talking about, like a one person designated as a emeritus position that could stay on potentially. It sounds like if you have 3 applications for 2 vacancies, this commission wouldn't necessarily need that. What are your thoughts? I mean, you've been on River Commission for a while, about having to go off, and then potentially, would you be interested? I know it's hard to say what the future is, but in a year, do you think you would be disengaged enough that you wouldn't be interested in coming back? Would you continue to attend River Commission meetings as a member of the public? How would that work for you just personally?
Yeah, no, good question, Jonathan. And actually at our last meeting, I think Scott, who's the chair and probably listening in, or the vice chair, was pulling for me to stay. You know, I really love working with the River Commission, and I would certainly stay involved in the activities that they're doing. But I do agree with the term limit in the sense that when I joined the River Commission, we almost got disbanded, as a couple of you probably remember, Jonathan and Shelley, I think you were. And it really came down to having someone that had been on the River Commission far longer than they should have been. And the commission itself got stagnant. So I do think it's good to have those. But yeah, and I'll stay involved. And then I keep telling Paula that I'll throw my services into the Park and Recs Commission. I just haven't applied yet.
So I think anything that's ever gone wrong in the past, that River Commission almost breaking up, was before Shelley and my time. I'm just going to start blaming everything on Steve Davis, because we can do that for the next 3 or 4 months, right?
We won't allow that. We're not going to. But thank you for that attempt. And thank you, Ashley, for all that you have done. If I personally don't get a chance to say thank you, we so appreciate the energy and the vibrancy that you've brought to this commission.
Absolutely. We're also really excited about you potentially on a Parks and Rec Commission. So
I'm gonna see if I can make it. I'm gonna see if I can make it through all of them.
There you go. And then the next step is council.
That's what I was just going to say. That's the next tier.
You or Nathan?
Yeah, I already got a 50-hour-a-week job.
I do want to just applaud this River Commission. I look at a commission that, brings money into the city with the grants that they go out for and the projects they work on, and helping us with policy advice like the riparian setback. And I'm really impressed with this group of people and the work that they do, and with Trent and his leadership there also, as Ashley pointed out. But Ashley, I've just been doing this with you for shorter than a year, and I have to say it's been great working with you. And so I really do want you to go over to Parks and Rec and then come back after a year. Just be there and
I'll do something for sure. But Paul, you did bring up a good point that I think we've brought up a couple times at this in terms of the money piece. There's the grant piece, but we also go out for Riverfest and we get a bunch of money donated to us. And I know we've talked it before with both Jen and Deborah about if there's a way. I know there's a nonprofit, the Two Rivers Community Fund. If there was a way that we could help fund our own projects, I know we've run into a couple of roadblocks, but that's always something that this group's been interested in wanting to try to leverage out. I mean, if we can go get the money, we can put it to good use.
And Deborah has her hand up. But I was wondering, with your relationship with Chad Rudo and the Roaring Fork Conservancy, could they act as a fiscal agent for you all? No, okay, they're not able to do that. Go ahead, Deborah.
I was going to say, I think we could talk to the Two Rivers Community Foundation. I know they sometimes have collected money for us. Sometimes it's a little awkward, but I don't see why we couldn't try again. And I just wanted to say thank you to the River Commission for all their help with the 3 Mile project we just got. We found out yesterday we got another $135,000. So it's fantastic. And I'm looking forward to that project being done.
All right.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
You've done a great job. It's a good commission, good group.
Yeah, thank you guys. No, we got a good energy.
Already looking forward to the
diverse
next
group of people too, with diverse talents. So it makes a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, guys.
All right. Looking forward to the river cleanup this summer.
Trent likes to plug that, what is it? Leftover salmon may be playing there.
Really? Wow.
Just to generate some extra.
Okay. It may or may not be true. We're just like throwing it
May or
out
may
there.
not be true.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Ashley. All right. Next we have Planning and Zoning Commission.
Hey, Jonathan, just curiosity, who is Richard Peterson Kremer? That's in
Richard
this?
Peterson, that has been I've had a couple of questions. Richard works for Carl and Carp New Handling. Carl couldn't be here.
Thank you.
He'll be here later in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious who was the panel member.
He is kind of your assistant city attorney.
Thank you.
All right. Hello, Commissioner Diem.
Excellent. Hey guys. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Good evening, Deborah. Hi. I guess we've done this before, so it must be a new year. I'm here to inform you about our focus that we unanimously approved in our last meeting and put forward to you. So that said, jumping right into it, the first largest focus we have as a planning commission, of course, is the update to the comprehensive plan, which is in full swings. We had a fantastic kickoff event, I would call it. Not party. Party is the wrong word. It's an event. And I have to say we had a lot of stakeholders at the table. I also feel good about the consultant that we hired. I think it's a good fit for all of us. My favorite thing that came out of it was, let's discuss small town character and what does no growth mean to you. Those were two of the items that I thought were absolutely fantastic of that evening. I encouraged all my fellow commissioners to attend every comp plan meeting if possible. I think it's a joint effort and for all of us, and we need to show up and we need to be there. It's a good thing. Next, I'm not sure if you guys have seen our latest downtown design standard amendments. We were working on them, and basically what it was is we want to make sure that we do not have certain types of businesses steal away vitality from downtown. We want to make sure we don't lose frontage, store frontage, and so on. So that's an update we're working on. Actually, we did work on, so it should be coming to you.
Marco, can I jump in real quick? So kind of our focus this evening is kind of, it's not a meeting with boards. We try to set aside a half hour, 45 minutes once a year. The focus more this evening is, how does our relationship work? How do, are we listening to you? Are you guys needing more direction for us? It's more of kind of a relationship.
Well, that's a ton easier than what I prepared.
Oh, okay. Well,
so I just wanted to give you a little bit of focus, and then maybe we have 2 minutes to talk about that.
Yes, no, perfect. And so we've been talking to other boards and commissions. You guys are pretty unique in that you will meet every month, unless I guess there is no development applications in front of you. And at that point,
very rarely.
I would love to, hear your thoughts on planning and not just zoning interpretations.
Oh, excellent. So I will move to one of my later points about planning. And we actually discussed that in the most recent P&Z meeting last Tuesday night. And, when we do our monthly public hearings, we're basically the zoning police. We make sure everybody follows code and see if we can find a compromise when we have some issues and do variances and all that kind of thing, or approve larger developments as we have of recent. But what we really would love to do is be involved in planning. I think I speak for everyone on the commission when I say planning is the absolute highlight of any planning and zoning commissioner. And that brings me to one of the points on this document that we submitted is the work sessions. I've been asking staff for work sessions for quite a while now, and we finally got them back. And I would like to utilize those work sessions for planning purposes, for visionary items, looking down the road a little bit, working on certain standards that might become obsolete in a few years. I would love for you guys to kick some things down and say, hey, why don't we have the P&Z look into this? And do a little planning on it. Other than that, I mean, that extra work session is I think going to come in helpful. We did have some extra workload a couple of times last year where we had up to a third meeting a month, which is fine. It happens. It's not a problem. But anyway, yeah, planning, I think, is our favorite thing to do.
Okay. Charlie.
Yeah, Marco, I know you mentioned something in the material we got for tonight about meeting with other boards and commissions. And you didn't talk about it here, which is fine. It seems to me, in looking through all the boards and commissions, there's a number of those that would be good to have. And you could, the planning and zoning, because they're involved so much, you could have a meeting with most of the boards and commissions, and that makes that difficult. But do you see a value in meeting with other boards and commissions? And if so, do you know which ones would be helpful for the work of the planning and zoning?
Right, absolutely. And the one that comes to mind right at the top of my head, of course, is the Housing Commission. I would love to work closer together with the Housing Commission. I would love to maybe identify some zoning issues that we may have to move affordable, attainable housing forward. Another one that was actually very enjoyable to work with was the River Commission. Now they had a mandate to fulfill with the riparian setback, and we listened and we worked together, and I think it worked out okay. So definitely housing, definitely River when necessary. I mean, we can really work with any commission. If anybody, transportation might be interesting to see if we could identify some areas that might work with I don't know if I say this right, multi-module transportation system or anything like that. I mean, anybody that wants to talk with us, we would love to, including you guys. Absolutely.
All right, Ingrid and then Tony.
As far as getting new blood on your planning and zoning commission, do you feel like we are getting diversity? Are you pleased with who is, the diversity on it currently, and or do we need to solicit and fine tune what we allow? A lot of the other boards and commissions have parameters, like somebody from this industry, somebody from this industry. So that's question one. Question two is if you can just address your thoughts on the term limits that we've kind of recently imposed. And three, because it's just easier, Marco, just throw them all out there right now. Three is, how do you feel about your how educated your new incoming commissioners are? Do we need to ramp up on that? Do we need to fund that more? Things like that.
Good questions. And of course, they're from you, Ingrid. So I have to think a little bit. First of all, I think you're right. I think the Planning and Zoning Commission is a little bit different than the other commissions. It took me a number of years to even finally understand what Code 070 actually means and what we're supposed to do with it. I wholeheartedly believe that in a commission of 7 with 2 alternates, you should have a good 2 people in it that actually know what Code 070 means. It's a very, very intricate document, and you really, I mean, staff does an amazing job, and we count on them with everything. But in the end, it's the nuances that we pick out from the code that help us make a decision. So the more you know about that code, the better decision we get. And so that said, term limits are fine. It brings new blood, not a problem. but it would be nice to not have all new members or the majority of new members at the same time. Like I said, I think we're a little different because we work with a very, very detailed document. And I forgot the third part. Oh, the diversity. I think we're good. I mean, we could, I don't know if I would specify certain trades or certain professions to be part of it. Because I think the best part is that when you throw a bunch of people together that come from a different corner, you get fantastic results. And that's what I've seen in the past. I mean, you know, we talk, we debate, we discuss, and everybody has something to say, and we all listen. And I think it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I think you pretty much answered all three of my questions really well.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Thanks, Marco. Tony.
Thanks, Marco. Thank you for what you do. You know, there's certainly and you touched on it a little bit when we were talking about what we weren't talking about, but there's certainly a diverse view in this community about direction and development and growth. Following up on what Ingrid asked you, I mean, do you feel that when I say diverse, I don't just mean diverse like racially diverse or economically diverse or different job diverse like architects and also policemen or something? I mean, do you have a diverse view on your board that reflects, I mean, maybe it's one person or two people that says, look, no more growth, or wait, we have to do more, or wait, there's not enough housing. I know you came to council with the project and you were frustrated. I mean, do you see you're getting all that on there, or do you feel it's sort of monolithic sometimes?
So let's do this. When we police the zoning, we're pretty much tied to the code, and we are monolithic when it comes to that, because we know that this is our document and we uphold the code and make decisions based on it. When it comes to development, I personally think we're a good mix, because we have affordable housing proponents, we have architectural design people on the commission, we have some people that would rather see less than more, there's no doubt. So from what I know from the current commission, I think we're pretty well represented when it comes to, you know, like I said in the beginning, what does no growth mean? I think it's a discussion we all should have at some point. But I think the diversity is there to not just move forward with everything we get in front of us. I really do believe that.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for all the time that you commit to this community. And I like your background.
All right. Is there any other questions for Marco? Marco, thank you. Thank you very much for your service. I think, you know, as we're talking about, you know, potentially like, how do we bridge kind of this gap of, you know, potential cliff effect of new members coming on, old members coming off? You know, I personally think that over time, this will kind of work itself out, but in the meantime, there's some growing pains. And so I think, you know, I believe you were the first person or the last person in. You know, we did our like, okay, we're going to cut off, you know, we're going to have term limits, but wait, what about Marco? And we're like, oh yeah, that starts the next meeting. And so, you know, I appreciate that you have brought that, you know, continuity to P&Z and that history. And, you know, I think that deserves further conversation among our council about what we're going to do.
Right.
Go ahead, Charlie.
And if I may add to that, I appreciate you guys, you know, working with us so closely, but I also would like to say, and I know you guys are the ultimate body that will appoint people to the P&Z, but I always thought it'd be helpful for whoever's chair of the P&Z to actually meet some of the candidates, if that's any way possible. For the reason of, well, how much do you really know? You know, what is your background? And so on. Do you know what a variance is? And so on. All these little things, you know. So anyway, just throwing that out.
I think that's a wonderful suggestion, that new candidates interview with the board they want to be on. Okay. Oh, sorry, Charlie. I lowered your hand.
That's all right. No, just real quick, Marco, I don't think the council of P and Z have met. I know we have this kind of weird relationship, not in a bad way, but because we review your decisions in some cases, and some cases we don't, or we could if we choose to do so. Do you think that would be helpful to, it's hard right now because the comprehensive plan, other things, but do you think it'd be helpful for direction that we start trying to do it at least once a year?
I would think so. And not necessarily, I mean, this is great because we want to know how boards function. I was ready to tell you what we're actually going to work on, because I think that might also be important for you to know. So you kind of have an idea of what we're doing. And yes, another meeting might be more appropriate for that. But yes, I do believe that. And it's imminent things we got to do. And then there's visionary things we got to look at. And yes, once or twice a year would be fantastic if we could spend more than 20, 25 minutes together. Absolutely.
I'm going to hop in before Deborah says this. We also have limits on what we can talk about those meetings. So,
And I was going to say, we did schedule one meeting with every board and commission last year, and it is on your future agenda work plan to do it again this year. I just had to wait until we did this to start, and it's only January.
Right. End of January. It's almost over.
All right. Marco, again, thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, thank you for your many, many years of service. Please pass on to your fellow board members how much we appreciate them. And I have wrote down, I think my takeaway from this is having potential interested candidates interview with the board they want to serve on, their fellow board members. I think that's a huge one for me. So thank you.
May I say one more thing? Just one quick little thing, and I would love to recognize two commissioners that had their last meeting on Tuesday night, and that is Commissioner Schachter and Commissioner West. And I wanted to thank them in front of you guys for their service and for their time commitment for the P&Z. These two members were invaluable, and they will be sorely, sorely missed. They were fantastic. So that's it. That's all I got.
All right.
Enjoy your night.
You too, Marco.
See you later.
Okay, next we have, I'm sure someone's bringing them over. We have tourism management. Hello, Mr. Drake.
Yeah, hello all. Thank you guys very much for being here. Council, Deborah, thank you all. So, yeah, I think I've got kind of built up a few of the answers that you guys are looking for, but please obviously direct me in the right direction or kind of ask whatever you would like at any time. So you guys are probably aware, we've made a few changes as a board as of recent, things that have come across your plate, obviously changing our name from Tourism Promotion Board to Tourism Management Board, I believe is a good indication and reflection of the current position. On a monthly basis, historically, we have always met monthly. We have just switched over to starting to meet quarterly. So that'll begin this month in February, and then meeting every February, May, August, and November is the intended schedule. Obviously then being available and meeting as needed with any shorter term notice. But also receiving monthly reports from Lisa or Heidi from Visit Glenwood to definitely fill us in and kind of give us obviously what's taken place over the past month. So we just did that in January, and that was very good and proved to be, just a good sit down and read and kind of keep tabs, keep pace with everything that's taking place. I think the like-minded boards, I guess the number one that probably comes if we were to meet or have it be good, valuable time, meeting with the Parks and Recreation Board probably seems to be most appropriate. And then, yeah, again, please jump in with any questions, but, to kind of refer to the term limits, I think we did kind of see a backlog last year where it was, we had a number of board members obviously stacked up on the same rotation. So we had pretty significant turnover last year. It definitely did help, moving from the board size of 7 up to 9. And I think that'll keep a good even rotation moving forward. So I think that's quite balanced. Obviously at this point in time, we're rotating out 3 and about to bring 3 onto the board during the February meeting. So I think those kind of hit on some of the questions you guys have asked. We obviously did, obviously send forward some notes for the focus for 2022. But yeah, this kind of sounds more like it's just how we can work with council and other boards to be more effective, be more efficient, stay on topic, that kind of stuff.
Great. Questions? Go ahead, Charlie.
Patrick, I know I brought this up at some of the tourism board meetings, but and I see the focus. I think the main focus is marketing and marketing plan. But do you see any change in focus or need to change in focus of the tourism management board to look at what's a long range vision, for the city? How much business do we want to bring in? I know we talk about increasing shoulder seasons and things like that, but do you think that's something that ought to be looked at by the board, the management board over the next year? Is, what's the long range vision?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely applies. And as you already mentioned, being, I think the name change, Tourism Management Board, is a good indication of that. It's equal parts of being able to apply that tourism throughout the year, the shoulder seasons, to balance things out, not have such a significant impact in the summertime. But it's also being mindful of obviously our environment and actively being involved in things like Lisa has set the board up well with, of Care for Colorado or Leave No Trace initiatives. I think those are all important and actively in the process. Just the responsible tourism. That's something that I think we're all mindful of, and definitely understanding the value of tourism for the council, for this community. But it's at the same time, making decisions that don't leave us regretting too heavy of a season or unable to manage that tourism in an appropriate manner. I think also on top of that, with recent events in the canyon, just being able to communicate effectively and efficiently to the tourism population coming, and being mindful of the current state. We're actively participating in advertising that brings tourism in a bit more from the Salt Lake area or from the non-Glenwood Canyon corridor, and trying to make decisions that are 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, because it takes a little time for that to pay dividends.
Other questions? Patrick, do you feel that you hear that when you're able to present information to council? And part 2 of that is, do you feel like we provide clear direction and of what we would like from tourism forward?
I do. Yeah. I mean, our every meeting with either Charlie or Paula, there definitely is very clear communication. There's obviously the clear, these events or these activities are taking place in the near future. So there's that constant communication. And then also the bigger picture looking forward. I think the one thing that is being obviously communicated is the budget funding, as we recently went through the 85-15. I think that's definitely good communication, and conversations came from that. But also looking to the future, how we continue to fund or hopefully increase funds over the years without seeing a decrease. Obviously being based off of the accommodations tax. If there's, conversations that need to take place with council in the future, with the potential of a decrease in bed space in Glenwood Springs with accommodations moving to more longer term housing or employees housing that's needed, and kind of looking down the road. So I do think there's good conversations to be had with council and with the board that, again, put that 2, 3, 5 year kind of conversation out on the table as well.
Go ahead, Paul.
Patrick, it's good to see you. Has there, I have not been as engaged this last year or so. Charlie's been there mostly, and I've only stepped in 1 or 2 times, but is there, we've talked about Parks and Recs, but we also kind of look at kind of bigger pictures sometimes, what's the future of Glenwood? What do we want to see? Whether it's trails conversation or that type of stuff. Is there a way that the tourism board might be interested in participating in some of those kind of bigger forward-looking, what's the vision of Glenwood, and thinking of that in the sense of, and then you would be marketing it outside our community? I know we had the RERC here about a year or so ago, and there was a lot of participation from the tourism board on some of those smaller work sessions in there. But I feel like there's things that happen at the city council level or P&Z or other places that it might be a way for you guys to engage as well. Is that of interest to the tourism board, or is that something they've ever talked about?
Yeah, I would say very much so. We're all obviously very much invested in the community, and how we move or grow in those directions. It obviously directly ties and applies to tourism, and I would say the board would be very interested.
And a similar note, so I was kind of thinking comp plan there, and I know we've kind of filled out who's there, but just to have some, have a visitation or some engagement there might be interesting. But also that sense of, what are we looking at for this ad hoc committee, looking at a potential ballot issue, the feedback from the tourism board would, I think, be important there, because you all are leaders of the community in regards to what activities are here and restaurants and that type of thing. Is that, something that you want input on?
I think those, they would all be healthy conversations. And I think, again, looking at the diversity of the board, or how those conversations could potentially involve members of the board, I think general consensus, I think we would all very much like to be involved in those conversations, or communicate with council, and that we're obviously at a pretty influential point of being able to offer activities, lodging, staff those lodging locations and activities, and how it implies to the housing in Glenwood Springs and Glenwood Springs growth in general. And all of those conversations weave themselves together, and definitely would be interested in having those conversations and trying to be of value or an asset as a board. We would definitely be available.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I know you're only doing 4 meetings a year now, but trying to figure out how to tie you into some of these other conversations and joint meetings would be, I think, valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, it does open up other conversations, like receiving the monthly report this month. You're able to kind of read through, go over a lot of the things that we're hitting on every meeting. And so it does open up other time and other topics or conversations that we could be involved in.
Great.
Yeah, and I think that would be, if you're going down to 4 meetings, I think that joint meeting I would hope would be the 5th meeting, not steal away from one of your quarterly meetings.
Yeah, that does seem appropriate. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Drake? Go ahead, Ingrid.
One, and that is, and I've been asking it kind of throughout the evening, that at some point in time on a lot of our boards and commissions, we've stipulated a diversity within the members to make sure that it's well represented within the industry. So, you know, on yours is you've got somebody from lodging and all these different, you know, recreations, whatever the case. Do you feel like our spread right now is diverse enough? Do you feel like it's too restrictive? Do you feel like you have a good, you know, ability to get interest? Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, something we were able to address last year was changing some of those board positions or some of those specific roles or requirements. At that time, it did feel a bit restrictive. I think we're struggling to see exactly how everybody's slotted in. Over the past year, obviously, with making those changes, it does seem like there's a good pool of individuals that obviously apply to each one of these specific criteria, but it's also not limiting. So I think we've struck a good balance as a board, and also creating more seats. You know, again, it just helps with the term limits. It helps with the even rotation, and we're not having to. It was a little bit of a, you know, moving individuals around in previous years to make sure we were able to keep a full board with the requirements, but that's not the case now. So I think we're at a good balance.
Great. That's good feedback. Thank you. It sounds like there was a little bit of a learning curve per se, just to kind of get everybody on track, but I appreciate that it's kind of smoothed out and it's working now.
Yep, very much so. So.
Okay, great.
Well, yeah, it's fun. It's interesting, you know, we added 2 members, and you know, we still have, I think, tomorrow night to appoint 4 members, but we had 6 applicants. So it's hard not to appoint people, but it's a great problem to have. So yeah, I think that's due to the work you do, to Lisa Langer creating a really good and productive board.
Yeah, and I think that's the contribution right there. Lisa definitely has a great pulse on everything, and again, the board members actively contribute and definitely are invested and want the best for tourism and Glenwood Springs in general. So.
Yeah, and Patrick, one thing that just, I guess my last thing that kind of came up, Margaret Diem suggested that, you know, maybe we allow the boards or the boards and commissions to interview potential applicants and make a recommendation along with potentially, maybe I'm getting too far ahead, but along with the board or the council liaisons. Do you think that would be valuable if you guys got to interview potential people, or do you think that just adds too much time, energy, and whatever to it?
No, I think if it were, you know, keeping it maybe within the confines of the board chair or, you know, obviously the council liaisons, that seems appropriate. I'd hate to sit a candidate up there and have 15 people in front of them. That doesn't seem fair, but, you know, keeping it specific to that, maybe that chair or vice chair role seems appropriate.
That's great feedback. Anything else? Mr. Drake.
No, thank you guys so much. You guys all have a good evening. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks for everything you do and put in.
Thank you too.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, just so you know, when we did the Vail board interview, before they came to you, they met with the board directly. So sometimes I think some boards and commissions do that.
I didn't know that. I just thought, I think it's a great idea. And if
with the whole board, with the whole group.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I think that's, you know, I don't think that's how we had to set up, but if that's what they did, I think that's a great idea.
It worked out good because they have questions about, like, what do you do?
Right.
We've also had visitors to FAB and to the River Commission prior to the interviews. So maybe just offering that opportunity of come to a meeting.
Right. I think so too. We've invited people to come and attend the meetings. I don't know. I want to think about whether it's appropriate for the actual volunteer board to interview and make recommendations on the applicants. I'm going to keep the boards very diverse. So.
And I was there, Shelley, for that interview.
Hold on. Let's hold that discussion to the end of the meeting. That's part of the stuff we're going to talk about at the end of the meeting. And it's no offense by the Great East End Track. So
yeah,
who's Christian Henry?
Christian Henry,
I don't know.
is the housing
interloper.
Downtown Development Authority Council, Mr. Henry.
Mr. Mayor, Council, and Deborah, nice to talk with you, even though the mayor can't pronounce my name, but I have to give him credit. He's got this meeting on schedule thanks to Charlie cutting him off. Otherwise, he would have blown his schedule. Good evening.
Good evening. Christian, I guess, one, do you feel, I mean, you are one of those unique boards that we have said like 3 times tonight, oh, you're very unique, but you are your own board. You have your own budget, your own revenue source. That's totally different. I guess one of the questions is you've hired a new director, Jillian Sutherland. Thank you. Meeting with her next week. I'm really excited about that. But do you feel, I think I'll skip the other questions. Do you feel that there is a good communication between council and DDA to where your recommendations are received and heard, whether they're always voted on or not by this council? And conversely, do you feel that the DDA has clear direction and insight from this board about what your role is and what we want from you?
So the short answer is, I think we do. As you know, we worked through the downtown development plan update last year, and that was presented to council. You approved it. That's really our cornerstone document of what we operate off of. And the fact that it got updated after so many years, did have good conversation with council. I know our board appreciates our annual work session sitting down with council, and certainly the budget process has been when we sit down and present our budget and have discussions with you. I think we've had good open dialogue, and we believe you've listened to us, and we also believe that we've listened to you and have made changes in the DDA to we are there to serve at your pleasure, and I think we've accommodated that.
Do you feel members of the DDA feel valued and heard? And yeah,
I think so. Obviously, when you have a group of strong-willed people and differences of opinion, and just because we make a recommendation on something or want to do something, it doesn't mean rubber stamp. So at times, there may be a difference of opinion and a different objective, and we just have to work through those and deal with it. It's working together, and I think we've done that. I feel like we have a great relationship with city council, with city staff. The cooperation that happened through the whole pandemic between the chamber, DDA, and city staff, I think was amazing, and we'd like to keep that up.
Great. Questions? Go ahead, Paula.
Christian, we've heard from other boards that they would like to do some coordinating meetings with other boards. Which boards do you think would be valuable to the DDA to actually sit down with and have some discussions?
I think the DDA should meet with P&Z, obviously with working at this downtown overlay. That I think we should be having a seat at that table and a part of that discussion. I believe I heard earlier Arts and Culture wants to meet with us annually. So we're certainly happy to do that. But I think the P&Z one is probably the most appropriate and a direct correlation of our mission and theirs.
Tony, you had your hand up briefly.
Tony.
What year is that picture behind you?
That would be very early. So a few years after the hotel opened. I can dodge so you can see the building.
That's cool. So you say me, I mean, I think there's a lot of different boards that it seems like you guys affect. I mean, we just changed the name of the tourism board. I wouldn't be opposed to changing the name of your board. I know it's paid for with a special tax and it's the downtown, but I mean, this community is so much more than downtown. And instead of looking at that as like an us versus them, do you see an opportunity, Christian, to make that a positive and to work throughout the community to improve things that benefits, of course, the downtown, because, you know, what benefits the community does benefit downtown Glenwood Springs.
So I don't think the DDA board or myself are against working collaboratively for the whole community. I think we see that as very important. I do think it's important to remember that our funding, we do have to spend in the district, so we can't allocate funding for things, but we can certainly have discussions and collaborate and make sure there's alignment, if that's kind of where you're going, Tony.
Yes, I'm not saying financially, I'm just saying collaboratively.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's something that the A word, Aspen, has done very well with its boards and commissions, from HPC to tourism to having sort of a holistic plan where everything benefits everything. I come to Aspen because I can look at the historic Victorians, but I'm also going skiing, but I'm also looking at real estate, but I'm also doing this and this and this. It all relates, and Aspen's downtown and their mall was so successful, but it radiates around the entire community to create success. So that's what I would like to see.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie.
Counselor.
Yeah, I want to comment on what Tony said. I've been involved with the DDA since like 2008 in one capacity or another, and the expansion of the collaboration has been phenomenal over that period of time. And I credit a lot of that to Leslie and Deborah working together, which was not a working relationship under our previous city manager. So I think that's helped a lot. And I know that the vision is at each of these board meetings that I'm at is how do we help the city? And, you know, obviously the folks got to be downtown because that's the nature of the entity. And Tony, I don't know, but I don't think he changed the name. I think it's statutorily required, but I'm not positive. So
maybe literally change the name, but thank you.
Other questions? Christian, you're on, I didn't ask this, and maybe I should have, of other board presidents or board chairs, but you're on, I don't know, half of our boards and commissions, or have been at one time. What are things that maybe through your kind of cross-pollination of those different boards and commissions that are, I mean, we've asked other candidates, other boards, what do you think can be helpful, or you know, do we communicate well? But what are some things that you think could be more effective or efficient in at least maybe the DDA, but you can also speak on behalf of your experience with other boards and commissions?
Yeah, fair question. I'm only on 2 of your boards plus the chamber, so I'm not on half the boards, but thank you. You know, I don't necessarily have a great answer for that right now. I think the DDA is functioning well. I think, you know, FAB, I think we've done a good job there with assisting with the budget and, you know, giving some financial oversight, advice, recommendations. So I see good communication between council and boards.
Great. Well, that's good to hear. Any questions for Mr. Henney?
I'll answer 2 of your other things that you asked other boards that you haven't asked. So the DDA agenda is taken care of by our executive director, and we produce our own minutes, so no city staff assists us with that. We have had a full board for the last, I think, 2 years. We do have 3 positions coming up this June, myself included. I do intend to reapply, so there will be, you know, there will be some seats. I don't know if the other 2 plan to reapply. Did my video freeze? You can still hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, okay. But I think we've had a good churn in the DDA board. And currently we haven't had a problem recruiting people. And I see Ingrid's hand.
Ingrid's hand's up.
Go ahead, Ingrid.
So I think you've done a great job of giving us an overview, and my take on the DDA is you guys have all been very effective and efficient. Seems like it's a very cohesive board. I'm curious, that in the course of the history of the DDA, do you feel like there's an energy and a progressive moving forward? Do you guys have projects that you feel like there's a real vibrancy to the board comparable to other chapters in time?
I think so. Our priorities now are completing 6th Street Phase 1, working on the Cooper Alley, and we want to start coming up with some streetscape for over, what the heck? Where Kevin's Cooper. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah,
brain
that's
dead.
okay. Yeah.
So I think we've got clear vision of what projects and vibrancy we can work on. We have, we were conservative with our spend over the last 2 years, so we've got funds to contribute and participate. So we believe we've got plenty of things on our plate right now to be vibrant and keep driving downtown.
Great. That was the answer I was looking for. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ingrid. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor, I appoint Christian Henry to all the other boards and commissions.
Second. All in favor?
I'm sorry, there's no Christian Henry in the on the screen right now. There's only a Christian Henny.
I want to thank Christian. Since we all know he's actually engaged in the city in many things, not just the boards and commissions. And he is a valuable contributor toward this city. So I want to publicly thank him.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Christian. We really appreciate it.
All right, you're still, you got 4 minutes. You're ahead of schedule.
Absolutely.
Have a good night. Thank you.
You as well, sir. All right, next we'll bring over Housing Commission. Yes, Mr. Willman.
Mr. Mayor, can we have 3 minutes since we're ahead? And I could use a quick break. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay, that's fine. Let's do that. Let's come back here. Let's take 5 minutes. We'll come back at 7:02.
Deborah, are you in a secret location?
My living room.
Oh, because there's like that curtain.
Yeah, this is what the curtains in my living room look like.
Oh, I
They're
like this.
They're the dark, no light ones.
Oh, like the blackout ones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I knew I liked you. Yeah, it's Christian Henny. Everyone says Henry. It's Henny.
I know.
Okay, thank you.
All right. It is time. It looks like we now have Housing Commission. Who is getting brought over from the Housing Commission?
That'd be me.
Oh, hello, Sumner. Sorry, you snuck up on me. Sumner, first of all, thank you so much for all the service you've given to the community over the years and in your role as this relatively new role as chair of the Housing Commission. I know you're also have served for a long time on planning and zoning and just termed out. So thank you to start off.
You're welcome.
I will say, you know, maybe you've been hearing some of the other questions. They're kind of trending on a similar path, but you know, Housing Commission is one of our newer commissions. I think it's been around for 2+ years, just over 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm kind of curious about, you know, one, do you feel that you're getting good direction from council on what your role is? And again, it's a relatively new commission, so maybe that always isn't clear. I'll admit to that out front. And two, that your recommendations that you are perceiving to get, or that you're giving to us, are accepted and given weight.
Well, we are relatively new. We were resurrected. And I would say, John, that I think right now the responsiveness is a little less than what we'd like. Partly, I think, because we have had to spend some time setting our own priorities. I think you got in the message from us, there are two things that are really important to us going forward. One is, and it's been pretty sluggish, is a proposed partnership plan where we have an RFQ. I still don't know if it's out there. Okay, it is, Deborah, thank you. To see if we can provide housing on 1 or 2 city parcels. That would be extremely important because it's something we have not done and other communities have. The school district did it here. The other would be, and this isn't lack of direction from you, but it would be time to help us pick it up, would be in terms of preserving our affordable housing. And we have quite a number of units that we're not aware of that people haven't publicized, and we'll be doing an inventory of that. Would that be looking into preserving our mobile home parks and perhaps engaging Thistle and a group out of Boulder to help look to the future to preserve them, to turn them into co-op mobile home communities? That would be critical. And I haven't done a number count. I think staff may have, if not, I will, of the number of units we're talking about is huge. And in general, I think it's really important. I think you've heard me say this, to get a little bit more specific top-down direction. We know the last strategic action plan had housing is important. And I've heard, well, you tell us, you're the experts. I kind of disagree with that. And I think the commission would, saying, we'll talk about what can be done, but you guys tell us and give us the information and the resources to pursue which of the housing options you want us to flesh out and bring back to you. I think that is very important. And I'd also say, I think the community, and maybe not even council, is totally aware of how much progress you've made in a relatively short period of time. And there's a document, I think Shelley and Paul have seen it, and I hope the rest of you see it, if not. And it's editable, and I just updated it for the new ad hoc committee on Google Share. It works easier for me, Deborah, way easier than the Microsoft sharing mechanism. And it's the Housing Commission Action Plan. And it's a pretty good summary for anybody, including our new members, about what's happened, what our code has done, what's left on the table, and what other resources there are. So long answer to a short question, John, sorry.
No, it's great. Go ahead, Deborah.
And I can turn this over to Shelley. Shelley, do you want to tell them about the grant funding we got today?
Sure, although you probably know more about it, but we, Sumner, just to update you and the rest of whoever might be on watching from the Housing Commission. We did just get I think it was 130,000 or 150.
40, that was for the river project, 45,000, so we can hire a consultant to Sumner to help us get those answers, I
40,000.
think, to you guys on
Yeah.
Right.
where to go and what we should do. 'Cause I
I'm
think
sorry, what-
Planning, yes, housing help for planning and just moving more initiatives forward for inclusionary housing. And that came from DOLA. DOLA and other partners throughout the state. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah. Sorry, you're right. I did get the amounts mixed up, Deborah. Sorry.
I'm just hoping it helps us with that disconnect between, we don't, Hannah does a fantastic job, and Watkins, I think, does a fantastic job too, but like, we don't have that expertise on staff. And I think that's where we've really gotten into this cycle of, we don't know how to move forward. I'm hoping this helps us figure out how we really move forward.
Great.
Are we still, were you looking to hire, or no, we haven't gotten there yet as far as trying to hire someone?
So I think, yeah, sorry, I think this is a great conversation, but maybe not germane to the purpose we're doing right this second. So, but it's exciting. Congratulations to the entire city, to the Housing Commission for the 45,000, which I think will really move us forward. Sumner, one of my other questions that I've been asking everybody is, oh gosh, what have I been asking everybody? I don't know. You've probably been listening long enough that you probably know the questions better than I do at this point.
Well, diversity on the representation on the commission and
Yes.
dealing with other commissions. I think we have a good group. There's a little bit of diversity, not enough. And we have been struggling with outreach and recruiting members. I think every commission might have an issue with that. And I haven't even heard lately whether we had some participants, but I don't know if they've been officially appointed to the commission, Shelley. So diversity is still an issue, John. We're working on it. And you'd asked about working with other commissions. I think the clearest dovetail is, like everybody says, planning and zoning. Transportation would be another one, and council, obviously. Those would be the three most important to meet with at least once during the course of a year.
Thanks. Ingrid.
Sumner, thank you so much for all that you do. We're so fortunate to have you. When it comes to the Housing Commission, I know that I'm just gonna mention the elephant in the room and say, do you feel like the recommendations that you're giving, we're hearing? And if not, how can you better communicate with us? What are ways that you feel like you can be better heard?
Okay, I think the answer is, I hope you're hearing, and I'm trusting Paula and Shelley to bring that information to you. And I believe they have. And maybe, and perhaps, and I haven't seen, maybe the minutes need to be stronger in terms of written recommendations. That might help to create both permanency and a trail. That would be something that might help as well. That was one part of your question, Ingrid. What was there another part? I'm sorry.
Well, ultimately, I guess what I'm wanting to see, and I love the feedback that you just gave us on diversity. If we can, one of the things we have for a lot of the other commissions is that we have some very delineated skill sets or industry backgrounds for each, person. But when I hear that there's a hard time with recruitment, that to me seems like not appropriate. But I want the diversity that you have or need in order to have that robust dialogue at the table.
Well, it's difficult because, from my opinion, to be truly diversity, when we're talking about housing, we need not retired people. We need people in the labor force. We need Latino representation. We may even need 18-year-olds who hope to live here in their own home one day. And because of time demands, those are the very hardest to recruit. And we're continuing to do that. And any help we can get would be very helpful. I think the other thing that kind of a segue, not exactly to the diversity issue, but one issue that's going to be facing us, and I know it's a political issue, but the fact that we're doing the comp plan right now and this ad hoc committee will help us get a gauge of what does Glenwood, not just the council, what does Glenwood define growth as? Is it number of units? Is it number of people? Is it a carrying capacity of people that will keep Glenwood the way we, and I don't mean us in this room, a broader audience want Glenwood to be? That will also help shape, I think, the direction we get from you and the projects we push up to you as well. But it's, so far I've heard, at least from the community survey, that housing is an issue, and we're trying to find ways to create that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, because I think that that's the challenge. You hear don't grow, but then you also hear, but we need to grow in some way. And how do you find that nice, beautiful marriage between those two? And so that's why we do appreciate what you bring. Going back to your comment about the 18-year-olds and the diverse different groups, could it be that meeting less often or having more focus groups or something like that would help in that?
I think the commission should continue to meet monthly, but it never hurts to do an outreach or have some kind of advisory group that maybe just a focus group that meets once or twice a year with us. Would give us additional, it wouldn't give us diverse membership, but maybe more diverse input.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think that's the discretion of your commission, but if you ever need more direction from us or help with that, please let us know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for Sumner?
Well, thank you all.
Well, Sumner, thank you. You're another one of those guys that have been around forever, volunteered for a lot of different boards and committees. I meant that you've been helping the city for a long time. That's my heart. But we're really excited. Thank you again also for serving on that ad hoc committee and agreeing to do that. We're sorry the first iteration didn't work out, but I'm really hopeful that this new group is really diverse, far-reaching group that is pretty representative. And I'm really glad you are providing representation.
It's off to a good start.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Thank you all.
Thank you
very much.
All right. Shelley, summary left. Shelley, do you know if the Housing Commission has any vacancies right now?
I believe we did have a couple of seats to fill. We have interviewed already, and I think we were waiting for the appointments till after this meeting.
I see. So after this meeting, yes, we were, but after there's enough, I guess my question is, will there be enough? If we appoint the people who've applied, will there be a full commission in 30 days?
I'd have to check.
Okay.
On that.
Yes, Mr. Muse.
Oh, the name of the Greek goddess of love. I love it. There's one vacancy and 2 seats up at April.
I know we've interviewed a couple of people, and for some reason I thought that we would have a full setup. That was my belief anyways.
Okay. I'm just keeping track to find out, if there's an identifiable gap in any one of the things. That's why I've been asking. So just for everybody's information. Okay, Parks and Rec Commission. Miss Speck, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you all?
Fantastic.
Well, it's been very interesting listening in on all the different commissions. And I think one thing that sounds pretty relevant is that we all have some good conversations that we could benefit from each other.
I agree. I think there is I've been hearing these joint committee suggestions with you, or not specifically with you, but like with Parks and Rec and River, maybe once a year, and potentially Parks and Rec and P&Z. Like, I think that cross-pollination, without getting too, round around the axle, seems like a pretty good outcome of some, at least for me. That's one of my outcomes that I've heard that I think sounds pretty great. Lori, so you guys meet, I was liaison for a couple of years, my first couple of years on council. It's a great commission, strong people. Do you feel that, one, you have enough time to meet to address all the things you want to address? Or two, do you feel that you could meet less often?
I think that, so unfortunately, I only heard back from one other commission member besides myself. So I'm gonna, I guess, kind of speak more just from my feelings. So I definitely think that once a month on the first Wednesday of every month for 2 hours is just fine. We haven't been very successful getting together with small other little committees, but I think that there's still a possibility when we have specific projects. The one thing that I'll answer before you ask the question, because I've been hearing all the questions, we did have one person on our commission that definitely didn't feel heard or valued in his presentation when he came in front of council. And so one of the things that we came up with at our last meeting is that maybe when we're asked specifically to come in front of council, that we not be limited to only the 3 minutes. Because we're not just a member of the public, but a chosen representative of our community, and we're giving a collective voice for our concerns or suggestions. So that was just one thing that we kind of discussed, that maybe there's an option for a little bit more time when we're specifically asked to come and support a topic. The Parks and Rec is a really huge department, and a lot of our meetings are kind of all over the place, from what's happening at the community center to the numerous parks around town, to the roundabouts, to the Center for the Arts, the airport, the public events downtowns, the river permits. I mean, I have to say sometimes in our meetings, it's a little overwhelming of all the things that we're talking about. That being said, Brian is fantastic, and he really tries to stay diligent in answering questions. And I do really want to say that I've appreciated having Ingrid and Charlie come in person to the meetings recently. I think that having city council members there at our actual meetings has been really a good direction for us to go. I think that, I was kind of thrown off when the term limits came around, but now hearing why you came to that idea, I can see the value in that. But one thing that I'd like to say, kind of back to when Haley was talking from the Historic Commission, is, there's a real difference of opinions when you have people like me that were born and raised in this community, and then people that are new to this area. And I was wondering if maybe in this conversation that you're having, that there could be a special interest group that could be, pulled in for specific projects within these commissions. For example, Bill Coleman is, in my opinion, is an incredibly valuable resource for us to have on Parks and Recreation. Somebody that's lived in this community and really knows the history, I think is so important, so that, we continue to work in the right direction for our future projects that's giving credit to the history. So that's just my suggestions.
And I think that's great. I remember Bill on there when I was going to those meetings 5 years ago. Do you think that Bill, I guess I am asking you to speak on his behalf, but do you think that people like Bill, or Andy Mueller, I know is also term limited, do you think that they would not participate, or maybe to speak for yourself, that if you were term limited and had a year to sit off because of our term limits, that you would continue to participate as a volunteer, would participate sporadically, and then at some point either jump back on or see that the commission was in good hands and step off? I mean, I guess I'll ask this for you to speak on your behalf. I just know that several people are getting termed off. So those are the people I know.
Well, initially when I heard it, I definitely didn't think that I thought I'd disengage completely. It kind of bummed me out, because with this past year and a half, almost 2 years on these Zoom calls, which I find incredibly annoying. I mean, I don't think that we've gotten much accomplished. And so a lot of the projects that when I joined the commission, I was very excited to participate in. There's just no way with budgeting, with Parks and Rec, that, we haven't really been able to be successful. So when I heard that, that the term limits initially came up, I think that, I was looking forward to being a part of the commission for as long as I wanted to be. But I understand, like I said, listening into why you're asking these questions. But on that respect, I think it's somebody like a Bill Coleman or Andy or James. I think that their input and their history of them staying the course with projects that are successful is really important. And so instead of saying, you can always come to the meeting whenever you want, I wonder if there was another, like a little bit more properly formal way that you could ask specific people to still participate in conversations. And, somebody's going to have a lot more incentive to want to come to a meeting if they feel that they're valued. So I don't know, making, each commission, I'm sure can go back and say, oh, this person was huge to our commission. Oh, this person really gave a lot of great input. So again, like a Bill, to me, I would want him to feel very welcomed. And even if he doesn't have a vote, I would want him to still feel very invited into the conversation.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you. I think we've got that. Tony, go ahead.
Laura, just to respond to one thing you said, I'm very upset if someone comes before the city council and they feel that they were disrespected. But it's always been my intention, the public's time is valuable, and especially an attorney like myself or any member of your board knows that they can say something. If they can't get it done in 3 minutes, then a judge is going to stop them or the mayor's going to stop them. So maybe keep it more brief and respect the public's time. That being said, what other boards and commissions, you've heard a lot of talk today. I think you're the one that sort of, everybody wants to sort of meet with and talk about different things they can do, because you have the parks, you have the different recreation activities, you have the different kind of things to do. Do you think that would be valuable to have, co-meetings, whether it's with, I don't know, the DDA or something like that? And how would you envision that happening? And do you guys have the time to do that? Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. The notes that I was taking down tonight, I think that the historic preservation in regards to more focus on, historical importance and education showcased in our park areas would be really important. I know that we have worked with the River Commission. I wasn't really a part of those meetings. That was just a little bit before I came on board, but I think that that's a really important one. And like you mentioned, the DDA or even this new Arts and Culture Board, the way that I think, I've been invited to be a part of the conversation with the North Landing project. So sometimes maybe these like subcommittees really could have some benefit of, having 3 or 4 people from that commission. We haven't done it yet, but I'm feeling inspired that it's going to happen here pretty soon. And so maybe that is kind of Tony, maybe that's kind of the idea, is that instead of the whole group all getting together, that there's these subcommittees that get together.
Oh, great. Thank you, Laura.
Ingrid.
And my question is not so much for Laura. Thank you so much for all you've done and showing up, but rather as feedback from some of her suggestions, and I know that Councilor Hershey commented on the 3-minute rule, but after this evening, is there a game plan for us to take the feedback we've received? Is there, and I think that is something for you guys to all hear, that we're taking all of this and we're going to brainstorm and collaborate and see what are some subtle changes or large changes that we can do for efficiency, for respect, for all of those things. So thank you for bringing those things to our attention. And I will say that when a member of the public comes in front of us as just an individual, that's 3 minutes that we have always honored. But when the chairman or a representative from a board or commission comes, a lot of times that's the voice of 7 to 10 different people. And so maybe the weight of that should be given more credence. So thank you. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Ingrid. Any other questions for Laura? Okay. Thanks so much, Laura. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the service. Please pass on to your Parks and Rec Commission how much we value them. I think, if we have a snafu, we just need to be more clear on what is expected about a formal presentation versus a public comment. I think there was some honest confusion about that evening. So I hate to hear from anybody that we don't value them, that we feel that they feel or we did something to offend that. And I think that was a communication issue that we could have just done better on. So go ahead, Deborah.
In the future, if we have invited a individual from a board to talk specifically, I think we will just make them part of the official presentation. So it's much clearer for you guys.
That's great. That's a really well-rounded approach to resolving this concern.
Yeah, and I think Ingrid, to your point, we actually should have a work session at our next, well, maybe not our next meeting, when we can fit it in, where we take all this feedback and we kind of start to make recommendations. And I'd like to take those recommendations, distribute it back to the boards for their comments, and then be able to pass something that maybe standardizes some of this. There's a lot of good stuff that's happening tonight, I think. Okay, next, Transportation Commission. Who's my bringer over person?
Ralph, I believe.
There he is. Okay. I was getting used to it being done for me. I'm getting lazy. Mr. Trapani, how are you doing? Ralph,
Hey, Ralph, you're muted.
Ralph, you need to lower left-hand corner. I'm sure you know.
How's that?
That is great. If you have video, we'd take it, but if you don't, we're okay as well.
Yes, I do have video, and I thought I turned that on too, but when I came in as a panelist, I lost everything. There we go.
There you are.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for giving me the commission and myself as a chair an opportunity to speak to you tonight. I've got a few minutes of comments. I've been listening in most of the evening, so I think if it's all right, I'll go through my comments, and I think it'll expedite things a little bit. 2021 was challenging for the Transportation Commission. We had a heavy workload in 2021 that was continuing from our responding to the MOVE study, the work in 2020. We've been keeping our own minutes, and we've had several transportation subcommittees each month in early 2021. Of course, we had the untimely loss of our chairman, Rob Gavrell, in September, but myself and our remaining 3 members really kind of decided to move ahead, and we're really looking forward to getting some new applicants and filling out the commission in 2022 and moving ahead to support council. Our priority topics for 2022 are really focusing on transportation demand management, TDM, and the comprehensive review of the city's long-range transportation plan, including large and small projects. In February of 2021, we submitted a recommendation to council recommending a graduated approach to managing mobility and reducing congestion. Utilizing inexpensive, flexible, proven TDM techniques, managed parking, and so on, and looking at relegating expensive, high-impact projects like highway widening, river corridor bypass routes, et cetera, to more of a long-range status. Now, we are really looking forward to using our new TDM grant and pursuing these low-hanging fruit options to help reduce traffic and improve quality of life and for everybody, for tourists and citizens alike. And we, of course, think that can be done before the more giant infrastructure projects are contemplated, because we've simply got to get a grip on the 2% annual traffic growth. We would love to work with Marco and the Planning Commission on multimodal solutions. We'd like to talk to the DDA on housing and local mobility, and we'd certainly like to talk to the Airport Commission on South Bridge issues. Concerning our meetings, we'd like to meet monthly. That works for us. But we are more than willing to take subcommittee meetings if necessary to support the mission of the council. We do also enjoy working on public works topics with Matt Langhorn. We've got one on our commission meeting next week to talk about snow removal and cleaning the ditches. We generally agree with our current charter. We do think, though, that documented statements of purpose for our commission, the charter itself, there's an internal commissions document, should replace the term investigate with a more collaborative term, a term like explore or assess or research or review. But that said, We think the commission should help facilitate citizen engagement on transportation issues and proposals. Consensus building in Glenwood is at best challenging. Without a foundation of trust, it's impossible. Transparency in government builds trust, and I believe our citizen boards and commissions can be aligned to support transparency in government without using that term investigate. And as I said, we suggested a few replacement terms earlier. The mechanics and protocols for submitting commission recommendations should be clarified. We made many recommendations in the past, but then staff would put a cover of their own on them and they'd go directly to the council that way. And there wasn't a lot of interaction between our recommendation and the staff kind of assessment of the recommendation before it went to council. And I think we'd like a more consensus-based approach to that.
Ralph, sorry to interrupt. You're doing great. You're knocking stuff out of the park. But how would you? This is a forum where we're trying to, and I know there's been a lot of these conversations, especially Transportation Commission. How would you suggest when transportation or any board or commission wants to make a recommendation to council? You said get consensus, but sometimes staff might be recommending something different than the commission. How do you, I think I'm looking for a recommendation from yourself about how could you better achieve consensus? And also, if that cannot be achieved, if your recommendations are at odds maybe with staff, how does that process also work?
Well, certainly, Mr. Mayor, you can never build consensus on everything. Certainly, it would be preferable when the commission came up with a recommendation of some kind that if it was unacceptable to staff, that it kind of came back to us at that point in time. But that doesn't always happen. People need to think about things. And in that case, if it does go maybe perhaps against the commission's recommendation, it goes to the council that way, maybe there would just be a way for us to be at that meeting or to somehow have a final response of some kind. But I do understand that there's going to be disagreements on things.
Okay.
And basically, I was finished. I was just simply going to say, I really appreciate the flexible approach on the term limits policy that's currently imposed. We lost a pretty good traffic engineer last year, Lee Barger. He would have rejoined, but again, those limits were in place. And, just listening to other questions, Lee wasn't interested in coming back as a former member and helping us out or anything. I don't know what his reasons were, but he's not appeared at any of the other meetings. And I think that would generally be the case. But thank you all for listening. I'm more than happy to take some more questions and discussion.
Well, I think to that, I know Sandy is coming off. Sorry, Tony, just real quick. He's mentioned something about Lee Barger. Lee Barger has been off, I believe, a year. His term expired in February of 2021. Mm-hmm. I know Sandy Lowell's getting off. I think he is term limited in February 2022. Do you think that Lee knows that he is able to come back on? Do you think he would have an interest?
Well, Lee keeps up with things. He probably knows. I'm not sure whether he'd have an interest or not. We do have 3 new applicants, which is encouraging. And I have reapplied. I'm not outside my term limit currently. So we've got 4 possible applicants, which I think is great because we've got a heavy orientation towards old white men at this point.
Okay. Tony, sorry. Thanks for your patience.
Ralph, you can't build a consensus on everything, not even entrances to small communities and stuff like that. We've talked a lot about, and you've been listening about, and you mentioned it, working with, I think it's like crucial to work with planning and zoning, but I mean, I can't think of anything that transportation doesn't affect. Can you, Ralph? So, I mean, anything that your board can do to assist just council, but also to affect the various boards and commissions that, work with you and work with the city, would be really helpful. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your hard work over many, many, many years. Many.
I think he was calling you experienced, Ralph. And that's what I took
well
out.
Experienced.
Councilor Wusso.
I just wanted to also commend you on transitioning back to or into the chairman position so eloquently and effectively. So thank you, Ralph. You've were kind of a godsend at a really hard time. So thank you so much just for what you brought to this commission.
Well, it was a difficult time for all of us, Counselor, and I appreciate your efforts too to build some bridges and get us moving back again. One of the reasons I reapplied was I feel like we can move forward and do some great things. I mean, we've got a wonderful platform to work on here, and we really need to get some new people on this commission.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think the new energy, and yet also just paying credence and appreciating those who have been in those positions and are so knowledgeable. So stay in touch with us on that if you are finding the term limits to be challenging. If just definitely give us all that feedback, or give it to Shelley and I so we can bring it to council.
Shelley, then Paula.
Yeah. Thanks, Ralph, for being here, and thanks for all your years and helping guide the transportation decisions in this city. I agree with Paula. I'm hoping we can get at least a couple of the applicants seated at our next meeting. So I'm not sure who will be on there, but Ingrid and I will discuss. We have interviewed, I believe we've interviewed 3, but I know we did have 3 applicants. So hopefully we can get those seats filled up. I did want to make one comment on the recommendations of the board versus the recommendations of the staff. I see our volunteer boards as having kind of an independent voice, right? But you are a recommending body to council. And I think us as council can discuss this a little bit later in the evening, but I want to say this for your benefit right now. I think it's important that if the commission itself has a recommendation and staff might have a different recommendation, there doesn't have to be a need to bring those two together. I think it's okay for those 2 recommendations to come to council, and council can consider those and will consider the merits of each one and understand, put that into context. But I think it's okay, and even a little bit healthy sometimes, for the volunteer boards to have maybe recommendations that are different from staff. And I don't take that in a negative or light on either party. I think it's just differences of approach and opinion. So that's part, to me, of a healthy dialogue within the community. And so I think it's okay if that happens occasionally with the board.
Well, I understood, Shelley. I appreciate that. And you mentioned dialogue, and it seems like if there is kind of a difference in opinion and there is a good dialogue that occurs at the council level, it would be nice if someone from the commission was there to represent perhaps a different opinion. That's all.
Right. And I think us as council will get to discuss that a little bit more about how the commissions can give their input, because that came up with Laura, brought that up also.
Good. Thank you.
Paula.
Jonathan, first, I commend you. We are getting through these things on a timely manner. You're doing a great job. Ralph, it's good to see you. I have actually sat in, I think, on one Transportation Commission meeting, but I've always really enjoyed seeing the reports from the commission and reading through your thoughtful processes and recommendations that you give us. My question kind of goes back to the meeting that I attended was about the time that you broke into subcommittees, and I'd like to know how that worked for you, number one. And it sounds a little more formal than I've ever heard on any other commission I've been. Would you recommend that for other commissions when you get into periods where there's a lot to look at? I'm thinking in particular with Parks and Rec, they said a lot of stuff was thrown at them every meeting. And did that help facilitate kind of moving through stuff?
Well, concerning that question, Counselor, we were responding to the MOVE study, and that was a very compressed timeline, which is necessary because it's less expensive to do those on a compressed timeline. our commission is very energetic. I mean, even though we lost one of our members, I mean, it's a powerhouse, and a lot of us have some spare time, and it's for Sandy and I, Sandy Lowell and I mean, it's part of our business, so we can go through things very quickly. So from our experience, it was just best to respond to what you all needed very quickly and break off into committees and let some of the transit experts talk about transit, the bike ped experts talk about bike ped, and so on. That said, I think we probably got ahead of everybody. In fact, I think in general, the MOVE study got ahead of everyone. We tried to keep up with it the best we could, but really it's the council that sets these things in motion and manages a schedule. I would say that it was successful in that there's a large body of knowledge out there. When the time comes for the council and staff to start looking at it, it can be pulled up. But I would say that not every board is ready to do that. You know, this board is fortunate to have some industry experts and some people that are experienced and know the transportation issues in the community. But if it was a different board, it may become a little bit of a time-consuming and frustrating experience. One other thing is most of us on the board are retired or semi-retired and have a lot of free time. But again, it's what it took to do the job, and we stepped to the plate.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ralph? About process, I think, we definitely had some, because you guys are really high functioning, really smart, and maybe a few of you, just I'm saying, have some fairly strong personalities. I think,
really?
But I think that it's brought to light some of these questions. I think this meeting tonight is partly a result of like, how do we do these things? Who does take some minutes? How do we make presentations to council and work with staff? So, I think, well, at some times it might have been, I wouldn't even say painful, but difficult, maybe. I think that friction is hopefully leading us to a position here this evening where we're able to talk to all of our boards and commissions about some of these things. And I'm really encouraged, and I'm really hopeful that we come back in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks when we have a work session, process this, so we don't forget it. I'm taking notes. I hope other people are, and can come back and make these things, better.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate everything you all are doing. I think this is a good idea to do this tonight. It got a lot of things out, and that's the way to get communication. And, our commission is really excited about the TDM grant and the opportunity to have some money and move this thing forward.
Us too.
Thank you, Ralph.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ralph. All right. And as always, please report to the rest of your commissioners if you type up, which you probably will, a summary of what happened tonight, because that's who you are. But please let them know how much we appreciate everybody on council or on the Transportation Commission. We really do value your advice and your counsel.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll put it out on our fax.
Right. Perfect. And I will call Lee Barger. He's my neighbor. I have a relationship with him. I'll just let him know that he's missed.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Next, and I believe, unless my computer's frozen up, last is Airport Commission.
Yes. Hello.
Oh, Mr.
Last but not least, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Hi, David.
Hello there. So I'm up on the screen and everything now. I just got promoted to panelist, so good being on. Again, it's good to be with you folks, and appreciate the input that we've received from a lot of folks, the staff. As you might not be aware, there's been kind of a controversy surrounding the airport in the last year or so. There've been difficulties, and we've trying to work through those as we go forward. I guess, one of the things more than anything else we'd like, from the airport is we're looking more toward future certainty. And that certainty is always a hard thing to get. The airport, folks have always been involved in the day-to-day type operations of the airport, and have been very involved over the years in the budget process and managing the meager funds that the airport gets. Those funds have grown the past couple of years. one with the big helicopter operations we had 2 years ago, with the forest fires. And then, with the increased helicopter operations from both the Classic Air Medical and other helicopters out of there, the fuel sales, which are the primary source of revenue from the airport, has increased. We really, there's, issues as we go forward, and wanted to essentially come up, we've talked about this, an airport plan, laying out where expansions could take place, and having some certainty for those folks that are not going to invest the kind of money that needs to be invested. The last time that the council made a decision really on long-term airport planning was when they authorized the north hangars that were done over 20 years ago. Now we're coming up on 20 years on the lease on those right now, and that was done. I think the lease itself started being discussed and negotiated about 98, 99 or 2000, and so there is a desire for additional hangar operations, but there needs some certainty for long-term financing for those, and well, one of the things we need to work with them is the fees for the future as they go forward. We've been kind of hung up on where those get set for the future and how we move forward with those. There are some limitations in the hangar leases on what those can be, and comparing them to the rates charged at Rifle, but those need to that's part of the revenue for the airport that we need to work with and trying to manage that in the future. We have one position gets term limited this year, and one other individual, his first term is up this year also. So we'll be essentially looking for at least one new individual from as we go forward for the new position for next year.
Tony, you had a question.
Well, question and comment. I just wanted to thank David for all his hard work. I think, Jonathan, of all the boards and commissions you'll heard from tonight, this one is certainly the most passionate, and people on this commission, on this council, and people in the community can disagree, but they certainly truly care about what they do and really want to do the right thing for not just for the airport, but for all of Glenwood Springs, and they really believe that. Going forward, I know there's a lot of politics involved, David, but what do you see for the future of this board? What can city council do to help you, whatever decisions are made on the future of the airport? I mean, I guess we won't have an airport commission if there's no airport, but
no.
But going forward, what do you want? What do you need from us? Thank you.
I would say the ability to make a decision and enter in a long-term contract. As I mentioned before, Classic Air Medical really would like to build a permanent hangar for their operations out there. They could even, they've talked, raise potential of putting the new FBO in that hangar, and even having like a small apartment there for their the transient pilots. They will get from time to time when they need to bring rotate some staff through. If there's somebody on vacation, they need to bring a transient out there, and it'd be nice for them to be able to have that person there for a week or so. These are permitting issues, and these are financial investment issues that they need to be comfortable that it's going to they'll be able to get a long-term lease for that. We had one individual a few years ago who wanted to expand his operations out there and wanted to utilize Conus containers, portable buildings there, portable containers, and went through a very detailed process with land, the surveys and design, everything else where they would go, and then that was turned down. We have a lot of use of portable structures around the city currently. So those sorts of issues, we need to be able to have a layout. Where are we going to have additional hangars? People want to build hangars. they need to have that ability to make that investment.
Thanks, Tony. Other questions? Well, this might just be easy. The format tonight was kind of like, what can we do to make things more efficient, more effective? I guess
Yeah.
I'll kind of ask like, I've been liaison for a while. Councilor Hershey is now, but do you feel that you could meet every other month, quarterly? What do those kind of things look like?
I think we really like to meet each month, keep up with what's going on. Things, look at the pricing for fuel, look at how those sales are coming through, talk about what needs to be done, planning for future things. We really want to, we need to start thinking about planning for the airport expo again this summer, like we had last year. Take those sorts of activities, especially when you're working with a small volunteer board, take a lot of advanced planning. Meeting, once a month for, the hour and a half that we meet is really not a problem. And it doesn't represent an undue impact on people's time. And the folks that are involved with the airport, really enjoy doing that. We may want to in the future get back to meeting out there at the FBO. We started meeting at the FBO when we got into the bridge construction with all the traffic associated with that. And, folks found out that it really kind of liked that, getting to be out there, see what's going on, just, having a touch base each month on that.
And Jonathan, I wanted to thank Paula too for being the alternate. We've had some staffing issues in my office, and sometimes I have to leave for court at 8 or 8:15, and she's there early in the morning, so she's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, guys.
I hope that's not too early for you, Paula.
We can meet earlier.
The city likes it early. What can we say? But that's kind of how it is. I'm fine.
And we'll have to get you up sometime, Paula, up in the air.
Nobody's been that ride yet. I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah. I'll work with some of the folks on that. One of the things that, and as you know, I am not a pilot. I am a South Area resident. And I think that's also, we do not have a requirement for that sort of a membership, but frankly, I think that is a good, essentially a diversity type issue we need to have. And going forward, my term will be up, my second term will be up next year. And we might want to think about having a requirement that one of the citizen members be a non-pilot South Area resident. It's helpful to provide that connection to the community where the airport is located. We've had some issues in the past, a big one with the helicopter noise, and we're able to bring the folks in that had the concern, sit down and see how we can address that, and we did. And as we move forward in the future, I think it's good to be able to have that connection.
All right. Well, go ahead, Paul.
So I've sat in on a couple meetings, Dave, and you mentioned just a little while ago this air show that's done, I believe in August, right?
Yeah, Expo, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I know the River Commission is really pushing on kind of expanding, and growing their particular festival the first weekend of August. And I'm wondering, is that in line with what the Airport Commission is thinking of doing? Because I've seen it, but sometimes I hear about it, a little too close to me being able to plan to be out there. And I'm just wondering what the Airport Commission could do to kind of make that a big event that really people are aware of.
Well, and that the data's kind of floated around. It started really as kind of an ad hoc type thing. Just to let folks know about the airport and be a chance to be out there and get, we had food vendors out there. We had, at one point we, did rides, decided that became too much of an issue. And but being able to, have a lot of planes, folks flying in from, from other locations, have the planes on display, have the kids, the parents able to just walk around and look at the planes. We want to make sure that we don't have this in that is in conflict with other, city goings on. So we've had it in August, and this year we had it in September. We moved it later into September because we found that, when we did have some flights, it was less windy by the time we got into September. August, by noontime or so, the breezes picked up pretty heavily. This time, instead of having folks, being able to take flights, we had a number of overflights that were done, helicopters and planes, and just folks able to see what it looks like being, just off the runway there with planes, flying over. So I didn't get to see much this year because I spent the whole time as the parking attendant. I was up at Silpers Elementary letting folks know, well, there's going to be a van here in about 5 minutes. I really appreciate the staffing assistance that Brian and his folks provided on that with the van circulations and getting the folks in, because we really don't have room for parking down at the airport for all the people that came. And we've always had a problem with that, and really, making the Silpers Elementary the parking spot for all that with the van circulating. We had 3 vans that were circulating almost constantly for the entire time that the show was going on, the 4 hours it was going on. So a lot of folks came there. If you lived in south of Glenwood, in most cases, the folks just walked down there.
Well, hopefully you get to do it again this year, because I think it sounds like a great community event.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, in order to preserve my title of actually doing well and keeping people on time this evening, Dave, thank you very much. Appreciate your work. And
one more old guy.
This common theme, I guess.
Yeah.
But we need to move on. Please let the rest of your commissioners know we really appreciate them. And
thank you.
Next on the agenda, because we actually have an agenda. And thank you to all of our boards and commissions for coming out tonight and sitting through, and thank you, council and staff, for a 3-hour plus meeting on a non-council meeting night. The next item we have is protocol for boards and commission members addressing council. I guess we're going to talk about this.
Mr. Mayor, it's 8 o'clock. Do we really, I need to go. Is this something that we need to talk about thoroughly tonight? I know you also wanted to talk about Steve Davis, but that wasn't noticed. So I'm just concerned that this is going to take a long time, and I'd like to take a chance to look over my notes and digest what I've heard tonight.
I'm okay with that. I think the protocol for boards and commissions addressing council, I think that was a very specific issue that was a communication issue, and I think that can be in our notes when we talk about this whole thing. Sorry, I see some hands up now.
But I think you touched on it a little bit. I assume we're talking about a certain attorney, Mr. Fosnot.
Well, we don't need to go.
Upset. So, and I don't want to talk about anyone in particular, Mr. Mayor. Okay. I just want to say, if you can't, Carl's a lawyer, Charlie's a lawyer. If you can't get what you need to say in 3 minutes, you know what, then maybe you should be in a different profession. So I think people come before council and they're taking up the people's time. Let me finish, Mr. Mayor.
No, Tony, I'm confused. Hold on. No, hold on. Tony, hold on a second. No, because we're having a conversation now about the agenda item. So please, let's make a decision as a council whether we want to have the conversation about the agenda item or we want to put it off. Because if we do, okay, so go ahead, Deborah.
Can I just recommend that we go with, if a board member has been invited to present, we'll just make them part of the presentation that staff gives, and then you don't have an issue. Like, I think there's an easy solution on the table.
I would move that.
Can I second that, Jonathan?
Yes. It's been moved by myself, seconded by Tony. All of those, does everybody understand what that is that we're talking about? Great. All those in favor?
A little clarity on that, just that the commissions or a rep from the commission are allowed to speak for a reasonable amount of time to give their recommendation. So it would be part of the staff presentation, but they're not limited or dictated by staff. I mean, they can have their own voice, right?
And I think, but to Tony's point, we usually ask people who give a presentation, unless it's super involved in technical, we ask that any presenter limit their presentation to 5 minutes, typically, is what we give everybody. So I think that's a good over-under. I don't particularly want to have a commission member filibuster for 20 minutes because they need to be heard. So I think reasonable expectation of 5 minutes over under, depending on the subject, makes sense to me, but I'll let staff work with boards and commissions on that as a case-by-case basis. Charlie, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have no problem of, I've got, I have probably 10 or 15 items that I wrote down we need to talk about. And I think there's probably, there's so much brain power out there tonight that we have left in us, and we have to talk about a couple of other issues. But I do think I think we have on the proposed agenda that we looked at earlier today, a number of board appointments. And I think the agreement was we would proceed with those after this meeting. The one comment I guess I want to make is, we talked about combining boards.
So Charlie, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. There's a motion on the table right now specifically about 5 minutes for board chairs.
I apologize. You're right. Okay.
So if you don't have a comment on that,
no comment.
Can we call the question?
So are you putting a limit of 5 minutes, Jonathan, or are we just saying that the staff will use their discretion on including
I'll say use the discretion.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Tony? Staff's discretion on
staff's discretion, yeah, but 5 minutes seems like an eternity.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That is 6-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is our council vacancy.
We have a vacancy.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I stopped because you were correct. I was in the wrong place. But as far as protocol stuff, are we going to go ahead with appointments to the boards, or are we going to look at combining boards? I think that was a big issue when we're holding up on appointments. Is some idea we're going to combine boards. That's my recollection. I don't hear anybody here saying we're going to combine any boards. I think we should go ahead with appointments. We need to get these boards up and running. Most of these terms are up either this month in February, that is, or in March, and we need to get those done.
Yeah, I don't hear, unless somebody wants to say I am supportive of eliminating this board or combining this board or making this board a sub board of another. I think that's something that let's appoint this. Let's get the people appointed. I agree with you. And if that conversation happens to come up when we're processing this in 3 weeks, then we can have it at that point. But I agree. I don't think we should hold up anybody.
Okay. I'm happy moving on with that. I think we should do this at a different time because there's a lot of issues.
Do I have any other opinions on that differ from Councilor Wilman's? No. Okay, great. Counselor Hanlon. Counselor
with the S, not with the C. So you do have a board vacancy, or a council vacancy rather. The charter, my only role here is to let you know what the charter says, that you need to appoint within 30 days is the requirement of the charter. So that would be February 25th, I believe is the 30th day from the resignation letter upon which we had the vacancy. Obviously, February is an interesting month for you guys for travel reasons and things like that. I would make the recommendation that I think it's important that we abide by the charter on this particular issue, because I don't want anybody to call into question somebody's appointment because they were appointed outside the boundaries of the charter requirements. I think that there are a couple of different ways we can approach getting candidates in front of you guys for interviews, and I do think this format may be the best for that. Given that I know some of you guys are traveling, and I don't know, I think one of the conversations is just sort of when you might be available online to do interviews, and then we can kind of collectively, well, you guys can really we're taking notes, build a schedule around that for interviews, for a period for application for interested parties, scheduling some interviews, and then for you guys to take action, whether that would be, the only regularly scheduled meeting you have inside that window to take action realistically is on the 17th. And so I think there would be some question of whether you could accelerate that, or you could try to find a date after that for a special meeting. But with that, I'll turn it over to you guys for some direction to us.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Hanlon?
Absolutely.
Under the charter, theoretically, let's say for whatever reason that window was not met, it doesn't really have a remedy that I saw.
It doesn't. I just know that life has been somewhat contentious in town, and I think people are, like to see the city abiding by the rules that govern it. That's mostly it. I mean, I can see where if it slipped, like I said, I would hate to. I would hate to have us not abiding by the charter when that is our governing document. Obviously, if the council as a whole chose to let that date slip, then I think that's a decision you guys could make. I just think that there is, if nothing else, a little bit of a PR consequence to that. So
go ahead, Paula.
On the opposite side of that PR thought, Carl, there's also kind of representation that we'd be looking at. So if we do it February 17th, you've only got 4 council members
right,
here
absolutely,
for the whole town. And
right,
we all represent different wards, and we all represent the whole town as well. But there's that PR as well.
No, absolutely. And that's what I was saying is like, it is a very different, that's what I was suggesting. I mean, I think the reality is you try to do it either before everybody's gone, or I think there might be a day or two when everybody is back ahead of the 25th. I think it's really Paula and Ingrid, what your travel schedule looks like. I guess my suggestion would be is if there is a date earlier in the month that you guys might be available online, that you could do some online interviewing, in the next week or 10 days, whenever that might come in, and then move that appointment date, whenever you guys are back. So I think if you and Ingrid could let us know what your schedule is, I think that would help enormously.
So yeah, that's where I'd like to go. If people can commit.
Just one other question. What's the deadline for their applications?
We don't have one yet. That's up to you guys.
Okay.
So that's part of this. Like, I think the important thing is to figure out what works for people's schedules, and then we'll build hey, you need to have your application in before that. Here's when we're scheduling interviews based on that, right?
Okay.
Jonathan, real quick, I'm here the entire month of February, if that helps.
It does. Okay. So one, I'm really interested in both Paula and Ingrid's schedule and if they're available, because we'll have an online special meet. I mean, in my mind, hold on, just, maybe I'm way off base here, but in my mind, we could have an online special meeting. We'd have hypothetically give people a week, 10 days to get their application in. Then a couple days after, we could digest it. And then depending on, I think it's important to have Counselor Stepp or Counselor Wuso. I don't know that we can hold ourselves to such a high standard that we have to have both Counselor Stepp and Counselor Wuso, because, well, you're right, Paula, that 4 people making the decision is probably not a great look. 5 is fine, because that means we're just missing 1 person. In my mind, I don't think that we need to have, we can potentially have access to the interviews. So I guess, Paula, are you able to, I'm just saying hypothetically, like February 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, would you be able to log on to hear a couple half-hour interview, a couple, maybe 5, maybe 2, I don't know, interviews. And then if it's a special meeting, we can also make a decision then and appoint and seat that counselor for the meeting of the 17th, and then comply with the code.
Yeah, I'm available by internet the week of the 6th through the 12th. I also have some work commitments that I have to do by internet that week. So I don't know exactly what time yet, but
you're not
available totally by internet.
Okay. And that's great. That's what it'd be, since we're not in person. I think it'd be. Counselor Wuso, what about yourself?
I leave and will no longer have internet service that's really reliable on the 10th. I believe I may have it intermittently, but I certainly can't make any commitments because I am in a foreign country. And then I am back on the evening of the 22nd. So, if you wanted to schedule interviews the 7th, 8th, 9th, I'm comfortable with that. The other alternative is that any questions that I might have, I could share with staff or one of the other counselors. You guys could ask on my behalf. I could watch the videos because at some point I would have that, and we could potentially schedule a special meeting the latter half of the week of the 20th of February when all of us are back. And yeah.
And just on that note of the week of the 20th, and this came up with last week with the airport meeting, the special meeting for the listening session, is I'm at a conference in Junction the 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
Okay.
So would it be
but we have to
possible-
decide by the 25th.
Yeah.
Right. So would it be possible that conference you're at, I mean, I recognize that this is not ideal, Paula, would it be possible? I mean, I'm assuming this is a 30-minute special meeting to do this. Would it be possible for you to ping pong back and forth one of those meetings?
If I may, what is wrong with having, since Ingrid will be in town and Paula will have the same availability, it seems like, is there anything wrong with applications being due February 4th and us doing interviews on the 7th or 8th and making a decision then?
I mean, I think that's up to council. Absolutely.
Does
One little issue on the 7th, Mr. Godis. I'm sorry, I lied. I have to be in Meeker that day. I'll be back later. That's my birthday, but I'll be back later that night. But if it's at night, I could do the 7th, but not during the day.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is this general residing, the 8th works for everyone. Is that enough time for applicants and for the PR department to get out, or the, Brianna to get out the notifications to everyone?
The 8th does not work for me.
Oh.
That's not a council week. And I thought that was a week when you all were gone also, so.
Well, I think what it was, Shelley, is that everybody would have internet availability until the 9th to do an online meeting for interviews and potentially an appointment.
Shelley, do you have an hour? Hold on a second. Does Shelley, I want to go one by one. Shelley, do you have an hour of availability Monday evening at some point on the 8th or at all on the 9th?
Monday's the 7th.
Monday's the
this week.
7th.
Yeah. Tuesday is the 8th.
Yes.
My plan was not to be available that week. I have things going on that week, so I'm not really available. I might be able to squeeze in an hour if that's the only time we can do it. My push was to go for the 17th and then do a very short meeting the week of the 21st for an appointment, but if you want to accelerate that, then that's different. It seems short for me to only give applicants a week to get applications in, but.
Well, we could have applications due on the 6th, and that gives them the weekend to do that. I think we're coming up against someone's going to get pinched. Someone's going to have to make if we want everybody to weigh in, and maybe it's just not that big of a deal. So I mean, with all due respect to either Shelley or Paula or Ingrid, maybe at some point we just make this appointment where one of you can't commit to being there. If you can, great, but if you can't, then you just have to hope that it doesn't turn into a 3-2. And actually, if it turns into a 3-2, you're not changing anything either way, because if it's a 3-2, you're going to either be the 4th vote, which isn't deciding, or you're going to be the 3rd vote, which
right. Mr. Mayor, there would be, I suppose, one other possibility. Well, although that's the conference week never mind. Never mind. We still run into how much time does it take to interview and make an appointment, even if you find a time the 23rd, 24th to do everything. We're still running into a bit of the same problem, I guess.
Can I throw out an alternative? And that is that I don't need to be there on the 17th for interviews. I can watch the interviews later. I can submit all of the questions. So What if we just said applications due by the 11th? That gives everybody in council an opportunity to review it. You all do interviews on the evening of the 17th, regularly scheduled. And then the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, one of those nights, I guess, when I'm back as well, we do it in an evening in a special meeting.
That would work.
22nd would work better for me.
And actually,
23rd, I'm
I'm
presuming.
traveling that night. I shouldn't have said that. I should have said the 23rd, 24th, or the 25th. Sorry.
So the
That's okay.
25th is the only night that works because the 24th, we're all doing the airport listening session. The 23rd, I'm not available.
Okay.
I can be available during the day, but not the evening.
What about the 25th?
I'm not going to, Friday night's not going to work for me. I mean, we can do it during the day. Can we do it during the day?
Yeah, noon on the 25th. We do a lunch meeting on the 25th to do the appointment.
Is that okay with you, Tony? Was that a thumbs up on the noon meeting on the 25th? Okay.
Does that
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute Carl, but I couldn't. Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
How does that work with your conference?
I'll make it work.
Okay.
All right. So
Can you send that out though, Carl, so I can, or somebody?
yeah, or somebody will. I'm terrible at those things. So if I got it right, applications due on the 11th. Council will interview on the 17th for the evening work sessions, or even running into the regular session. We'll take whatever time we need to interview. And then you guys are looking at a noon meeting on the 25th to appoint.
Perfect.
Can I put in a one caveat? If we only have one applicant, I guess this would be for Councilor Wusso. If we only have one applicant, hypothetically, and that application is due on the 11th, do you feel comfortable with this council making a decision potentially on the 17th in your?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. In addition, I'm just going to put it out there that I will send Charlie Willman all my questions, and he has already graciously said that if I have any questions for any applicants on the 17th, he'll be asking on my behalf.
Nice.
Okay.
Cool.
Paula, I recall you can't be there for the interviews on the 17th either. Is that right?
That's true. I'll just give you more questions, Charlie, or maybe I'll give them to Shelley.
Why don't you give them to Shelley? They can bounce around more. Okay. that sounds good.
So if it's one person and you guys and everybody just says, no way, do you have any choice?
You do. I mean, you could go back out. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, I guess. That's a great point, because we've seen stranger things, right? I think if it's somebody that people find like they want to, they want to get more time, whatever, we'll see, I guess. But you can always extend it, ask for, another 5 days for applicants and get down to the, down to the wire, I guess. If it's just, I mean, or if they're disqualified for some reason, like they think they're in town and they're not, or I don't know, or they think they're in the ward and they're not. I mean, those kind of things do occasionally come up, but
so
okay. I just thought I'd put that on the table.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a fair point.
I want to make a motion so we have this clean. I'm going to move that we make the applications due on February 11th by 5 p.m. or 4:30, I guess. We'll have Ryan staying
Right.
after hours. 30 on the 11th. That we will conduct interviews sometime on the 17th during our work session or special meet or regular meeting. And we will select the person on or before noon on the 25th.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Willman, seconded by Councilor Hershey. I think all those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 6-0. All right.
Davis owes us.
Anything else for, council comments? Council comments. I know. I was just looking, one of those things, one was, do we want to go back in person on February 3rd? I know I had gotten some feedback that we possibly did, or we wanted to at least have a conversation. I've had a conversation, Charlie and I had a conversation with Deborah where I'll just, keep rolling Deborah, but it would be difficult because they would have to stop work, put back the council chambers to a certain extent. We'd still have holes in our desks, so it wouldn't be great. Or we could have a meeting at the rec center if we wanted in person, or we could just delay going back in person until the 17th, and that would be my vote, given the other alternatives.
Second.
I agree.
I
Okay.
seconded you, Jonathan, but I agree with you.
Okay. Am I seeing any dissent?
No, I was one that wanted to try to go earlier. I see Charlie's got her hand up too, but I'll just my comment. I want to go earlier, but to give what I heard from Deborah today, that'd be irrational to make staff go through those hoops so we can have a meeting in person 2 weeks earlier. I'm happy to go to the 17th.
Shelley, you need to get a different wall color or a darker hand, because I can never see your hand up. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I could put my face in front. I guess that makes sense. I didn't realize they were in the middle of construction in the council chambers, so that totally makes sense. I have to say, just Zoom meetings are the worst, and this does not, it's just tough to function this way as a council. So yes, I will agree that that's where we're at right now, but boy, I sure hope we can minimize these going forward.
Well, I don't like it either, Shelley, but I think that doesn't make any sense otherwise. So,
Okay. The other thing I would like is not an explanation, but we do have a mask mandate currently community-wide. I think I don't want to weigh in or direct staff at this point myself. I'll just speak for myself. But Eagle County has removed it. They've had almost a month of sustained decline. Pitkin County has not. And, I would like, if Deborah feels comfortable, not to put you on the spot, Deborah, but if you feel comfortable, do you see, you have the emergency order, you exercise that very appropriately to put this mask order on. What are some things you're looking at that would be kind of something that the community could look at and go, oh, okay, I could see at that point where it might come off in a couple of days, a couple of weeks, or if you're comfortable talking about that, that would be great.
Yeah, we put it on when there was about 800 per 100,000 cases of COVID in the community. And that's kind of what I was looking at to take it off, in addition to a declining positivity rate. I think as of right now, we're about 930. It's gone down significantly every day. So I'm hoping next week, but I want everyone to realize that 800 cases per 100,000 people is still a very high incident rate. So while we will roll back that, I think we still want to do messaging on, it is still a really good idea to wear a face mask, but that's kind of where I'm sitting. Council, of course, can always overturn that sooner if you would like.
Any comments?
I'm okay with Deborah using her discretion.
Yeah, I trust
Okay. I'm not going to take a vote, because taking a vote would be something to affirm something that we've already said she can use her discretion on. So we'll just move on to, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Charlie is seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time.
Thank you, Steve Davis, for all your hard work for all these years.
Yes,
We're
thank
going
you,
to
Steve.
do something
Moving
special
on.
and embarrassing next week.
I know, but if he's listening, thank you, Steve, which I know he's not.
I hope he's not.
Oh, God.
Bye.
All right. Good night, guys.